number one
Number
political
one.
hip hop radio talk show. Um, what can I say? This is modern day technology. We sorry for that. And for all of y'all who was trying to talk about Pritchett, I don't know how to take that, but thank God Pritchett take notes so we know exactly where he left off at. And I'm just as anxious as you all for him to pick up. And I do want to know, just like your Texas, about Baba Tucker being as involved in Seton Hall as he was,
Yes.
and coming from the great family with Cleopatra Tucker and that great family.
And
So,
we are
Professor,
not going to lose any time either. Our 6:30 segment, we're going to deal with that later. Our folks in
yeah,
the streets in Patterson, they're not going to come on the air. They will brief us next week. So we've got our time back for our esteemed elder. Dr. Pritchett, as you were telling us about Dr. Tucker back in Mr. Tucker back in 78.
So we were able to do something that was extremely innovative. There were probably no other models for this in the nation, perhaps. But we thought getting students involved with the living history of our communities, the living heroes, the living leaders, it's like experience by exposure. So we took students off the campus from Seton Hall through our Black Studies classes and put them at the feet of the giants right here in Essex County, and that was my responsibility. So we started with Donald Tucker, and once again, his national organization, the acronym is NBC LEO, LEO, which stood for the National Black Caucus of all locally elected officials, thousands of people. And we had students learning right by just being with Donald Tucker on every move he made. I might also add that during that same period of time, the chairman, as the Black Studies program was rolled out, I mentioned Father Fay, the new president then of Seton Hall, who actually gave a moral admonishment to the faculty and the staff here at Seton Hall to say, if we're going to be implementing the Black Studies program, we are not going to manipulate it. We're not going to compromise it. We're going to do it just the way the Black scholar, Dr. George Jackson, has presented it to us. Dr. Jackson's model was to have it not as a department, but as a semi-autonomous unit of the university, which simply meant the unit would have a dean over it, not a department chairperson, and it would have to make it accountable to the community, not the Seton Hall community, but the external Black community. It would have a community board of advisors. And now here's a moment in history for many of you. As the center was put in place, George Jackson, for those who don't know Dr. Jackson, he was a clinical psychologist with his doctorate. He then brought on board an assistant director, Judy Miller. So Dr. Jackson was going to handle all of the academic work, and he asked Judy Miller to handle all of the community development work and involve the community. So from there, we were able, Judy went out and asked State Senator Winona Lipman to be the chairperson of our community advisory board.
She was our first Black female state senator, by the way. And folks who are not familiar with that history should know that. And she was totally engaged with her community. She was one of our pioneers on that front. Go ahead, sir.
Absolutely. Brilliant young sister. You know, she had a PhD from the Sorbonne in Paris, France. So, matter of fact, I think her nickname down in Trenton, I think they used to call her behind her back the Steel Magnolia. No, she looked beautiful like the magnolia flower, but when you got close to it and you were offensive, your fingers might get cut.
She trying to take that down.
But she stood strong.
That's right.
She stood strong. And so the program rolled out. I believe that we had more courses approved. When people think about maybe today, African American studies or Africana studies, they're probably thinking about one or two courses, one on Africa and one on Black folks in America. At Seton Hall, that independent center had almost 30 courses approved to be taught. Everything from the realm of courses in education, that is the realm of education, how to teach Black children, We had courses in healthcare. We had courses in economics and business. We had courses on Africa. We had courses on the Caribbean. They even developed a very special Spanish course. It might have been called something like Urban Spanish, but it was for people who were going to be social workers or doctors and teachers. We taught them conversational Spanish, not the formal.
We can do with that now.
Yes, sir.
Because there's a whole new Pan-African awakening taking place amongst Black folks in Latin America, and a bunch of them are kids in the United States going to school now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We used to be. I was just going into Rutgers, Newark at that time, and I have to say we were jealous. I was jealous. Our Africana study, we had a couple of great scholars, but was not nearly as loaded as that. And right in the heart of Newark, we should have been. Right, FM radio station. I grew up with the great Bob Sumner, who helped put that hip hop on FM radio, hip hop history, y'all. Right at Seminole. I was there. We couldn't get out the building.
Well,
that's when I was doing jazz radio, Ed.
I'm familiar with it.
Well, let me just segue briefly to give you the Bob Sumner story and Professor Pritchett story. Bob comes into my office one year and he says, Pritch, he said, I do a lot of radio work, but I got a problem with WSOU. And I said, tell me what the problem is and what you need to accomplish. He outlined the problem. And indeed, we were I went over there and, I backed him up and I said, but this is the way it should be. And we were able to get things done. When anytime a student I didn't even view myself as an elder. I view myself as being the responsible one who links our past history and struggle to the present.
Yes, sir.
And I thought I would not compromise history by saying that, it's like Fanon would have said it in The Wretched of the Earth. Each generation must seek its own level of effectiveness within its own time sphere. That's the way I would phrase it. And so that I would have betrayed the current generation of young people.
Fill it over trade. That's what he said. That's right.
If I had not facilitated their dreams and make it that reality. But when you ask Bob, I think Bob would repeat that story. I did all I could do in my power to see to it that America's #1 radio station listened to in the country, WSOU, was going to be responsive to the urban voice, if you would. And
it was.
Now look at him, vice president, with
Rush Communications.
Rush Communications, exactly. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I mentioned students being hooked up with the Donald Tucker. I mentioned Winona Lippman coming on board, running our community advisory board. And, then Gil Noble, as a result of the Newark Rebellion and the ones in New York City, he gets pulled in as he's a radio disc jockey, working for a radio station in New Jersey. He gets called into WABC. And as Gil is rolling out his phenomenal Like It Is series, and with Elamre Brath and others who were supporting him, Gil eventually had the notion of how to put all of his experience into the book that he wrote, which I have an original copy of it. It's called Black is the Color of
My TV too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Gil then asked Judy Miller if he could design a course that looks at the issues of minorities and the media in the United States. And Gil designed a course that is taught today by Dr. Todd Burrows. That course was Media and Minorities, another legacy that we are proud to have maintained from that period of time where the other elders had laid down the seeds. Todd took that course and I was the instructor in it. And I have a feeling that if I remember correctly, the seeds that we planted in Todd for the paper he wrote for me became the seeds that manifested itself when Todd was at the University of Maryland, completing his doctoral dissertation.
Sure did. He's getting his work in. He's got those books out, and he's always at the grind. Very proud. Right.
So I think one other piece I could mention, it comes out of that my introduction to myself being a student entering college during the 1960s. In all honesty, I could say this as kind of a case study. When I was completing, my high school work, I didn't see myself as being any more than your very average type of college-bound student. I wasn't superlative. I didn't really manifest maybe many other leadership skills in the classroom. I had a lot of community-oriented skills. That's another story, though. But in the context of becoming engaged at Delaware State starting in 1961, a few weeks later, like I said, after we had gone into the Woolworths, classmates facilitated a sit-in demonstration. And this is one of the first times I saw fear manifest itself. We had hundreds of people at a little rally on campus where we were talking about what to do. The student government said, how many of you would take part in the demonstration? 100 hands went up. So the student government ordered enough buses to take folks down to this restaurant. That morning, 7 people showed up. So I understood the realities of how fear can grip our people, and fear can make us, if you would, crippled against going forward. 7 people facilitated the sit-in demonstration. 2 weeks later, on a Friday night, much like tonight, they used to do a dance on the campus and have a movie in another building. And everybody, by midnight, everybody's walking back to their residence halls. We had some young Klan wannabes who pulled their cars up on campus, turned off the lights, and started mowing down my classmates. We had one young man in the freshman class who had more than 100 bones broken in his body, which meant that he could not even lay in the bed once they had him. They put him in a full body cast. But they said if they laid him on his bed, the pressure of laying there from gravity would cause pain. And the only way they could get rid of the pain would be to give him narcotics. So they actually suspended this brother from the ceiling so that gravity would set his bones again. When I saw that image, I said to my colleague, I said, we're not turning back. We are not turning back, because we can see exactly how society, through these white folks, how they are coming at us. I said, if anything, we need to make sure we stand together, we stand in the front, and we let them know we're not turning around. And that became, if you would, my inspirational moment for all of this latent leadership within all of us to come to the forefront. And I use that model ever since, that within all of us, there's a leader just waiting to get out. And I say that because that sets the foundation for what begins to emerge 10, 15 years later when I enter Seton Hall University. So I was able to also set up an internship under Winona Lippman. And so that students could study how she uses power, how she would work in the state Senate and so forth. So that was the legend that we laid down. That was the legacy. And for the record, we can then move forward. We go from the conception of Black Studies at the university. I joined in 78. So I'll say during those first 8 years, in every October of every year, the Black Studies Center used to put on this annual gala, and they used to honor someone from the community, the national community, for the work they had done. And the people like Alex Haley was called in. He received an honorary doctorate. And some of the other civil rights icons received doctorates. And even though I wasn't working there yet, when I got those invitations, everybody wanted to be at Seton Hall at that point in time, because Seton Hall was becoming like the mountaintop experience. It was almost like the Mecca to us. It was the core where our cultural needs were being met. Seton Hall and the Black Studies program was like the best we could do anywhere, and everybody recognized that. That's why I was so honored when as a result of the interview process that really started in 1976 and 77, the people who ran Black Studies were so particular about the skills they were looking for and the commitment and the consciousness that the search for the social scientists had been going on for 2 years. And I think Judy even called me at some point after I had submitted a resume and said, look, we're going to give you the opportunity to back out of the interview. And I said, why? She said, because we are very, very particular. We're looking not only for a scholarship, but we're looking for that commitment and love of the culture and the people. She said, you're going to be interviewed by several faculty and 3 or 4 of our student leaders. Then she said, is that offensive to you? And I said, oh, heck no. I said, that is almost literally a revolutionary kind of a model involving students, letting students
Sure
see how selection is being made. And I was honored when the offer was made to me to join in 78.
Let me stop here just for a second, because there's one minor thing we got to fix.
Sure.
But I think we need to just plow through it, quite frankly, Ed. Our link went to YouTube, did not go to Facebook. I don't know why. So I'm telling everybody on Facebook to pick us up on YouTube, right? The link is on my own page, Baba Zaid, right? Pick our link up on YouTube. We are live on YouTube. We apologize for that unprecedented error. It will not happen again.
Amen. Amen. So now the history of the center, I'll encapsulate it from then to now. We operated starting in 1970 as a semi-autonomous unit of the university, where the director of the Black Studies Center had the authority of a dean. So that meant when the provost of the university, who was the chief academic officer, when they called the meeting of all the deans, you had the dean of education, dean of health, the dean of liberal arts, and the dean of, we'll say, of Black studies. And that arrangement lasted until approximately, I think, 1983, where there was some movement on the board of regents. They thought the program wasn't as effective as it could have been, or many more students were not taking the courses. They then made it a department within the largest college on the campus, which was the College of Arts and Sciences. And we went from having, as a center, 7 or 8 full-time employees and faculty and about 15 or more adjuncts, down to having literally just 2 or 3 people who could be identified as the department. And eventually that became literally, with Bill Sales's exit from the university, Dr. Sales, just became a half of a person who was shared between another academic department and running Africana studies. So that's been that trail and then that history. So as I indicated, with, I would hope and pray at this moment in time, with me being the interim director, I would hope that we will be able to revisit. We've also put together a search committee. We're doing a nationwide search for a person who will come in to develop the academic side of, once again, Africana studies. And I hope that the university will be committed at this point in time in the 21st century, when all of our work throughout the nation is being attacked, at least by a few states and a few governors, that will be committed to having that model that we started in the 70s again, which would be an academic model, which is totally infused also with community engagement. So I'll stop it temporarily at that point.
I hope they listen to you, sir. I really hope they get it. I hope they're listening. They're listening to their students. I hope they're listening to your alumni, right, who've been very vocal about this. I hope they're listening to our community. I hope they listen to their history, right?
Yes,
with one of the model Africana programs in the country, the world did not end.
Indeed.
You know,
Right.
who's afraid of the of Africana studies? You know, come on, stop.
Yes.
But that's true. But that's
and
true.
Catholic needs to be universal too. God, I was actually raised a Catholic, if you could believe that, right?
Wow.
It needs to be universal. Where is this intolerance is not only a part of the old racial legacy of this country, but it's also very contradictory to basic principle for this particular faith orientation that is supposed to anchor this particular university. I just got to lift that up.
Certainly.
But who would have thought, though, Professor Pritchett? I mean, with this type of rich history of seeing
Very
the whole,
rich history. Oh my God.
from the Black Studies perspective, I mean, how could they go from being that premier, right, to not wanting to make the type
Barely
of
existed.
Yes.
to make sure that they bring someone, right, who's going to continue that type of legacy.
Certainly. As a matter of fact, I think among the Black scholar community, if anyone else and anywhere in the country, if they were describing, you might say, progressive elements or model programs to look at, when it came to anybody talking about the East Coast schools, the 2 schools that would be mentioned first would be the program at Cornell University,
Cornell.
and the one
Jim
at
Turner, late great Jim Turner. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
that is our historical posture.
because when you talk about all of those people, even a Gil Noble, when you talk about that, I mean, Gil Noble shaped generations,
Yes.
right? And you think about all the lives that he had touched, and even his library alone. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
that he created. I mean, of course, ABC owns it, and I have no idea how that happened.
Mm-hmm.
But for that, I mean, you think about if it was cataloged properly and what it could teach us, right? You know,
Yes.
and what we could learn, but just the mere fact of his association with Seton Hall on that level
Yes, sir.
is absolutely amazing. And I'm saying that we look at today. I mean, thank God you're still there, Professor Pritchett.
How about that?
Right?
How
Thank
about
God you're still
Y'all
there.
pray for me now. Pray for me,
how
right?
about that?
Yeah.
Yes, we absolutely are.
For my health, and all of that. Yeah.
I mean, because for us, Professor Pritchett, you'll always be professor to us, right? Because you
Yes, sir.
because you sowed and poured into all of our lives.
Amen.
But at the end of the day, I mean, you know, the powers that be, right, have got to understand
Yeah.
what that really means, and then began to make the kind of moves. Because if you run a Dr. Harris away, right? I mean, you
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
somebody
Thank you.
who really loved young people, who
Great.
really want to sow into their lives, who
Mhm.
really came in and worked with the community. This brother, he was doing all of those things you said, Professor Pritchett.
We
He was
had a
a
good
Absolutely.
nucleus to build around too. We brought in Todd, brought in
yeah,
Stephanie James Harris, our former executive director from the Amistad Commission, a very diligent scholar, right?
Yes.
Beautiful scholar, right?
Absolutely.
We had that
Absolutely.
nucleus, and it was only place to go was up.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
you
Oh
know,
yeah, we had so many memories.
and so
I remember.
and so people talk about us being able to do that, Professor Pritchett. That history have got. I mean, thank God we got it now, somewhat on All Politics and Local. We got this tape and all of
Yeah.
that. But I mean, for the most part, I mean, we've got to get that history down. We've got to be able
Absolutely.
to put that
Well,
down so
well.
that when people come, they're able to read that history. Because I mean, all of us, I mean, listen, I'm so grateful that, I've had an opportunity, to walk those campuses while you were there, and the presence of the people that you were in, and the
Yes,
presence
sir.
of people that you know. But also, Professor Richard, I saw you. I saw you literally all those conventions you were going to take young black people with you.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Well,
And
thank
some
you.
of those young brothers and sisters like Bashir had never left the state
Yes,
to go to
sir.
places you took him. You
Well,
know?
that reminds me of us. I'm going to plug a story right into that. In 1992, out at I'm going to say Cleveland State, they were doing the Black Male National Summit, and they had the top 15, I think, black scholars in the nation who were going to be focusing on black male issues, from Malana Karenga, who founded Kwanzaa, to all of let's see. Naeem Akbar, who did, the psychologist who wrote "Breaking the Chains
Yep.
of Psychological
Mhm.
Slavery," and I just
Mhm.
knew we had to get there. And Les Edmonds was then the say chairman of the department,
Mhm.
and I said, can we get some money to fly some folks out there? And what he couldn't get a whole lot, but what little he got, I had to make a choice. I said, we have enough maybe to ride out there? And I had to make a decision about who could I take, because I couldn't take everybody. So I put the word out on the campus that I you could apply to go, and I was going to take the most active persons who had
Right.
applied based on their leadership. So it was about front. It was about what have you done. And I'm, I'm,
Right.
I'm pleased to announce to you all the coincidence. The two young men that I selected were Jonathan Austin and another guy by the name of Carlos.
Carlos Cortez.
That's right. That's right. Before he
And
became Bashir Muhammad Patah,
That's right.
I could tell
yes,
you
sir.
about Carlos Cortez.
Yes, sir. So
I
we
remember.
actually now that now I'm about to go to the challenge. So I was gonna drive us all out to Cleveland State in Ohio, And the day we were supposed to leave, a snowstorm hit. And but we fundamentally just waited for us. I said, no, I'm not going to cancel nothing. We have got to be there in the midst when all of this Black consciousness, this power is in the room. And we drove out there and made it happen. Now, I'm also going to mention that for the 3 or 4 days we were there, 1992, a very special movie debuted during that period. I would ask the audience if anybody can remember what the name of that movie was. But I will add that it had people like Tupac in it.
Boys in the
I
Hood?
can call a title out. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's it. I'm just doing this to prick your consciousness. The movie was called Juice.
Juice.
Oh, Juice. Okay, yeah, yeah. Juice was on gun violence too. That's right.
Oh yeah, exactly, precisely. And I made sure that, I mean, in terms of how I would roll in my own personal life, when a movie like that comes out, I want to be there the first night.
Right.
So I even asked the guys. I think I asked them, or I said, "You're gonna have to come with me because I'm going into town." But we all stayed in the same like hotel room, you know, and all of that. But I said, the movie's coming out. We're gonna drive into Cleveland and watch this film. I said, "You're okay." I said, "You got any apprehensions about going?"
Right.
They said, no. They said, "I think they might have said, you got my back. We're good." So,
Right.
I had them there the opening night when that film came out. We watched it together. I
Yeah.
want you to know that. And I just thought that was the way in which I'll say one generation must mentor, treat, and expose that next generation of leadership.
Yeah.
And both of those young men, like all of you, have made me so proud to have been as a part of your narrative at this point.
Yeah. Well, Professor Pritchett, as I said, man, you've sown into all of our lives, man. There's no doubt about that. And I remember when y'all took that trip. You know,
Okay.
I remember that. I remember when John and Bashir got back, and I remember how, you know, I mean, Bashir came back blacker than when he left. You know what I mean?
That works.
I was like, okay, so you got the jacket and the tam now, right? You official, you know?
Yeah.
But all of that made an impression on him. And obviously, and you know, he wanted to be on the night with you. He just said he was exhausted.
Yes.
Of course,
Understood.
he sent you the greetings. But man, Professor Pritchett, we are elated.
Got him a new classroom.
Grateful, yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I don't know what them young kids are like now, but I sure hope they appreciate having you, you know, around in the space that you in. You know,
let me also give credit where credit is also due for the current generation, because you've had a Imani and Chris on there, but I'm going to point to the two of them, for example, as well as the Concern 44 movement and now the Protect Afghan movement. But in that nucleus, we've got young people stepping up, and I think Chris and Imani are coordinating the effort in which they are attempting to pull together as much of this legacy, this narrative, and they want to make sure that it is preserved for the future. So we take our hats off to them because they are stepping up and their leadership skills are emerging as they accept and embrace the challenges of the present.
That's a great way for Chris to shine up that PhD he's working on. As we close, I want to share this announcement. Chris and Imani will both be with us this coming Wednesday. We're having an important town hall, intergenerational dialogue between 3 generations. Why Black and Brown unity matters, right? To squash some simmering inter-ethnic beefs that we ain't gonna have where we at on Newark right now. We ain't gonna have that, not with this history. Yep. And great Felipe Luciano, co-founder of the Young Lords, and the last post going to be one of our special guests. It's going to be a powerful night, building and standing on those shoulders and on that tradition. Sir, it was great to have you, everybody. We apologize for the tech glitch, unprecedented, but we're back and we're Black.
Can I just take, I don't want to talk. I just want to add something. When you mentioned Black, Brown, and Caramel people coming together, do you know Seton Hall may have been also one of the first institutions in the nation during that same period, right after Black Studies Center was formed. They put together a Puerto Rican Institute.
Yes.
Wow. And that's a story that between the Young Lords and the directors of that, and then also
right here. They were right here. They weren't just in New York and in Philly and Chi-Town. They were right here in the bricks.
Right here. So that when
That's
it comes
right.
to understanding the emergence of the so-called like Latino community, one must understand the foundational group is in
That's
that
right.
Puerto Rican experience.
That's
And
right.
Seton Hall had a very, very healthy response to the Puerto Rican community, but it was really based on its qualitative response to the Black folks and their concerns and their demands.
Wow.
Indeed.
Pritchett,
One
you should
last note as you
definitely
go
come
out.
through on Wednesday, Pritchett.
Hmm?
Yeah,
You should come through.
it's going to be, I didn't mention this,
What'd
it's
you
going
say?
to be at Newark City Hall's Municipal
Yeah.
Council Chambers, 6 o'clock, right?
Moderated by Mayor Raz J. Baraka.
Himself. How about
Right.
that? How about that?
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
Joe Louis used to say, it's going to be good,
Yeah.
right?
Got it.
As he goes out, he lifted up Tupac Shakur. I want to remind everybody that the last time he was here, Dr. Mutulu Shakur was not free. He is now free and has even made some public presentations since his freedom. So never give up. And that's the perfect segue to where we're about to get ready to get down with Mumia Abu Jamal. Y'all ready? Huh? Y'all ready?
Yeah. Let's make it
You
happen,
ready? You
brother.
ready?
Thank you, Dr. Pritchett. Thank you. It was a tremendous jewel as always. And you know we got your back. That's right.
So, Zaid,
Well,
you
as
want to?
my good brother Larry would like to say right now, power to the people.
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
everybody should understand how power comes from unity and consensus.
United
right.
Front. That's right. All right. All right. Well, good to see. Now we got a. Now let's segue. We got. We are. I have the language that I have used using the language of Ifa, the spiritual, one of the spiritual traditions of our West African ancestry. We are at the crossroads, and then I mean that in a powerfully compelling way. For Mumia, with where we at in court, we are waiting on one Judge Lucretia Clemens, who was originally predisposed to dismiss this absolutely urgent and correct need to reopen the whole question of evidence based on stuff that is right in her lap and in the DA's lap and in some of everybody's lap, right? And as a consequence, remember, Mumia's campaign is uniquely international and coming from all quarters of the international human rights community, just as this judge was predisposed, and she made it plain publicly, to dismiss this absolutely timely need to give Mumia this evidentiary here. She had to stop and say, well, we might need some time to examine some things, right? And since then, and we're now just waiting on how she's going to rule, since then, we have continued to turn it up, working locally and working internationally as we have always done, right? To make sure we give this judge everything she needs to find the shine in her spine to do the right thing. This segment, I'm proud to bring back Tova Fry. Tova is and Tova, don't get defensive like Ingrid would when I say this, is one of the elders in Love Not Fear.
No problem.
Right? Gabriel Bryant, who's an emerging young voice that we're very proud of. Also in our Love Not Fear circle, and we me and Pam and heads like us, we were hitting that wall for a long time. And Gabe and them started coming up. We said, "Oh, at last, we got some young legs up under us." And then on the very right of my screen, with us for the first time, also Mumia's grandson Jamal Hard Jr. son. I'm so proud of you and glad you're with us. And we've got so much that we want to hear from you. And enjoy with you as we get ready to make this next move for Mumia, right? So I try to give I try to give a broad, big picture of where we're at. Why don't we unpack what that looks like in detail? Who have been some of the forces who've been helping us turn this whole thing up around this judge at this time, right? What are the important developments that we have been making happen on the ground and in the international community and on the streets since then? I'll start with you, Jamal, because Jamal has been moving around, right? He got legs, he's working at young legs. And the West Coast has always been profound, particularly the West Coast labor movement has particularly been good to Mumia over a period of a lot of years, right? So Jamal, you've been spending some time on the West Coast. Tell us about that West Coast fire and flavor, that solidarity that's been coming through for your grandfather.
Well, I think you hit it right on the head. I think a lot of people forget about the power that labor movements have, and just when they have a mission, they drive it through. We just came off the hills of a protest that will shut down the ports of Oakland and San Francisco, also ports in South Africa and ports in Japan, all in unison, right? And every late labor union that helped with that port shutdown called for the freedom of Mumia Abu Jamal, and it just really it feels really great to see the people galvanized to the point of doing something, getting up in the streets, right? When Love Not Fear, as it was designed to spread love and unity and challenge state fear. State fear is the reason why we're here today. It's a white hot political topic where the Democrats and liberals, need to be powered by the people. And there's so many people that support and love my grandfather and really want to drive his freedom home. And the labor movements in particular in the Bay Area, really heard that call to free them all and move the mountain.
Yes, sir. Yes, I mean, you're taking me to so many places that the labor movement in the Bay Area has a long legacy of raising a whole lot of hell. One of my favorite pictures, y'all know, we in Jersey. My favorite picture of Paul Robeson is with dock workers in Oakland, right? Shutting it down, right? With Robeson's voice, y'all, oh my God. So it is great stuff, right? Gabe, tell us about how Love Not Fear got started.
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, let me say, free the land to the people, free them all, free them all, free them all, free all political prisoners, and I'm just excited to be on the platform as always, Baba Zaid, and the work that you're doing and been doing for so long as us. And we try to coalesce and get from ourselves to freedom and liberation. Love Not Fear was a combination of thoughts. And I always say that, Love Not Fear came, like many other movements, in the right time, right? Oftentimes movements and struggles, are working, and there's ebbs and flows of movement. And what happens is, young people and older people find ways to say, you know what, we need a new strategy or a different strategy to approach this thing. And so I actually want to shout out to Jamal actually on this, because I remember getting a call around this time last year, maybe a little bit over a year ago, from our brother Mike Africa Jr., as well as our sister Yane Indigo, as well as Jamal, saying, we have this idea to really sort of re-galvanize, not only locally in Philadelphia, but really across the country and across the world, a global movement to really reinvigorate this movement for Mumia Abu Jamal, particularly since we've saw so many victories, right, Baba Zaid? I mean, to understand the last several years and to know that we've been able to free, and I'm saying we as a movement, as a campaign, to be able to see people like the Move Nine home, to see people like Oscar Lopez Rivera home, to see people like Maroon Schultz, and may he rest in power. Delbert, all these people are coming home. Dr. Matusha Court just came home.
That's right.
It gives us that sense of victory, the sense of triumph, and we're winning. And so, Love Not Fear comes in that spirit to say, what can we do differently, right? How can we infuse a different vibe, a vibrant vibe, a youthful vibe, but also more importantly, connect the dots with perhaps some gaps that may have been there that we haven't yet closed up yet, right? And so how can we address some of the barriers around unity? How can we address some of the barriers around city to city, state to state, mobilizing under one banner? And so Love Not Fear comes in that spirit, and it's intentionally saying, if we come with love, right, we're combating the fear of the state. We're combating the fear of our enemy. We're combating the fear that has disallowed us, right, to not be able to move with a sense of purpose and passion towards bringing Mumia home, and again Jamal's grandpop home, right? And so I think that since over the course of the past year, we've had some significant triumphs, some significant victories. Last July, for the 40th anniversary of Mumia's conviction, we had over 50 cities around the world participate in a global protest. We continue to move forward, and it's only because of social media and the organizing and the global outreach and, more importantly, engagement that has allowed us to get us to a point now where we can say, you know what, Lucretia Clemens, you only have one choice.
That's right.
That's to do what's right and bring our brother home.
Tova, and that's why this is a genuinely youthful hip hop audience. Understand what's happening. This is what politics, this is what struggle looks like through a hip hop lens, right? But you know, you ain't the only elder in Love Not Fear, right? Right? You know, you're not the only OG on that right? That enjoy me calling you OG, baby. All right, right? Tell us. I mean, we had an amicus brief from the United Nations Permanent Working Group on peoples of African descent. Tell us how that dropped. How did that happen? Who was involved in that? Folks need to know.
Absolutely. And that was Julia Wright, who was the main driver behind that happening. Julia Wright is the daughter of famous author Richard Wright. And Julia Wright has been going after trying to get United Nations support for Mumia for a good couple years at least. And she was able to get the United Nations Working Group on peoples of African descent to actually file an amicus brief for Mumia Abu Jamal before that December 16th hearing, that decisive hearing that one of the driving factors that we believe made Judge Lucretia Clemens hold back on her decision. She had originally indicated that she was going to deny Mumia's appeal, and we wound up with a victory that day where all of a sudden she changed her mind, and we believe that amicus brief filed by the United Nations was one of the reasons for that.
Made everybody pause on all sides. And it was the first time that we saw them genuinely blink on the other side. Let's make it plain, right? And that's some other context, right? This is the decade of the international this international decade of people of African descent, 2015 to 2024. This was a pivotal moment, one of the most advanced political moments that has actually make a direct impact on an important human rights era for this enormous, influential base of the African diaspora that are African people here in the United States. And the fact that it was driven by African people outside of the United States, I want everybody to appreciate what Pan-Africanism looks like when it's got some real clarity. Julia Wright is in Europe, right? Frantz Fanon's daughter Marielle is in Europe, right? And we can look at some of the other folks on their committee and whatnot, but they are part of they are genuinely international human rights champions in important, pivotal human rights spaces, and who understand why this case deserves that kind of attention. I just wanted to make sure we got them lifted up in that. And somebody that gave you, who's getting ready to jump in? Who's getting ready to jump in?
I was just going to say, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because it's important to note that, and I've been mobilizing and trying to assist with this movement for Mumia Abu Jamal for the better part of 20 years. And the international piece has always been so vital. Do you know what I mean? And being able to, bring in folks who are from Mexico, bringing folks who are from Palestine, bringing folks who are from the continent, bringing folks who are from Europe,
Germany. Oh my God,
we're going to do it. And I think that piece about Pan-Africanism is so critical, because we find ourselves in a time where Pan-Africanism is under attack. And so this allows us to get more clear and deconstruct why Pan-Africanism is still needed, because in all these sectors of our struggle, we still see it manifesting, but more importantly, being a key criterion towards our victories.
Now let me pivot now. Let me come back to the domestic front, right? Now there's a brother that was in both the judge and clergy that retired who had kind of weighed in on where we at in court, and he made some serious noise, and he's ruffling feathers. Tell us, one of y'all tell us about this elder. Why don't you do it? Why don't you tell us about this elder that has also been making himself heard on what should be happening in Mumia's case right now?
Yeah, that was just Judge Griffin, and he was very helpful in explaining why the judge had, she sounded like she was going to fall back on just traditional court procedures and allowing, everything that had been done by these racist judges and prosecutors who and let stand the words of the Mumia's original judge, who said he wanted to fry the N-word when in reference to Mumia.
Judge Sable, may he rest in urine. I didn't use the four-letter word egg because we on the air.
Yep.
Yeah.
So anyways, but this Judge Griffin, who has just retired, was an active judge up until I think this year he retired, and he laid it out very clearly why standing on precedent and past the past rulings of these racist judges and prosecutors had no basis in law, and that the judge had every reason to overturn these previous rulings and look at it through the lens of real justice. So that's he played an important role in that.
Now we've had several days. Go ahead, Jamal.
No, I just wanted to say what really struck a nerve. So in December, Lucretia basically stated that the original trial judge, Judge Sabo, who nobody, not even his peers would deny how racist Judge Sabo is, right? She basically stated that he had enough credibility, and basically earned his credibility without even, and I doubt, from knowing what we know about Lucretia or what she publicly states, I doubt that she knew much about Judge Sabo to even insinuate that judge had any credibility when it came to convicting and upholding the conviction of a Black Panther member, right? A journalist who refused to be silenced and stick up for MOVE in a time where journalists were just pushing things along and attacking Black revolutionary groups. It really comes down to what it really comes down to is the judge understanding the mission at hand, right? This case, it's either going to be her crown or it's going to be her stain on her career. She cannot run from from the facts, and she cannot run from her job and duty. And when I talked to Judge Wendell Griffin, and this was before he put out a piece, right? Basically published a piece, which kind of led into like letter writing campaigns and led into a lot of things. And I thank Julia every day for just connecting Judge Wendell Griffin with this campaign, right? Judge Wendell Griffin said, judges, they don't tend to be brave, right? They tend to just do what they feel like do what they feel like doing, and also judges don't like to be wrong, right? And in this, Lucretia would be wrong if she doesn't grant my grandfather freedom, or at the very least a new trial. And I see Todd Burrows dropping massive facts inside the chat.
I'm trying to build up to it, Todd. I got a message. No, and that's absolutely huge. And Professor Pritchett, you're still here. Appreciate this. This judge, on our way to this original hearing, put together a video talking about her history and her convictions, Catholic background,
Yeah.
influenced by the legitimate outrage of the Black Lives Matter movement. She was telling on herself good.
Yes, sir.
He ate that up and went right to work and did all of those things that these kids just laid out, right?
Yeah.
And that brings us now to what we're getting ready to do, and it's a loaded day for me. But two things, and Todd is right. Before we jump into what's going to happen on the 11th with the event, I want to shout out, and Lynn hasn't been on, right? I haven't been able to get Lynn on. I need to get Lynn on this show. And I would love to get Lynn on the show with an intergenerational discussion of Black journalists, right? Lynn Washington, Black journalist, the lone Black journalist, right, who has stood by and followed Mumia's case from its inception and backed up his journalism, right? Speaking up for the people, speaking up against police brutality, speaking up on behalf of MOVE and on down the line. Just put a piece out that merits looking at. And you know, we've done a reprise of the film Long Distance Revolutionary, the film that was banned right here in the city of Newark by none other than media darling and sports legend Shaquille O'Neal himself, right? So I want to lift that up as we get down to what we're getting ready to talk about, and y'all jump in on either of those points, and we'll segue to what's going to happen on the 11th.
You know, I was thinking, just to punctuate a point, and this may be a comment for students out there, so they can understand when you mentioned the judiciary and its attitudes and its values. You know, Judge Leon Hittenbach made up a volume of books a number of years ago. He took all of his law books, and he wanted to really show and punctuate how the legal system in America underlines and provides the foundation for the system of racism. And I believe his book was entitled "In the Matter of Color."
That's right. I remember that. I remember when he dropped it.
Yes. Ever since the colonial period, even before we were officially a nation, laws were being written that did not have the terminologies to say, like, for example, for citizens of the U.S., but specifically mentioning the Negro. Thousands of laws were written to retard the progress of the Negro.
That's
right. All of you students out there, when you're looking for topics for a paper, I just dropped a few right there on you. Because this becomes, in my mind, the precursor in the context for Derek Bell's emergence then as, if you would, the godfather of critical race theory. Mm-hmm. So that take that one, y'all, and run with it. All you students are listening out there.
Right on.
And I think the beauty of what you're saying also, Baba Zaid, is that every time we've shared, you know, videos like Manufacturing Guilt, Justice on Trial, Long Revolutionary, shared the legal documents with legal scholars, lawyers, attorneys, they come back to us and say, campaign, struggle, family, not only is he factually innocent, he's legally not guilty. And this is what we've heard over the years, and that's part of the frustration, because we continue to hear the Judge Wendell Griffins of the world and many other scholars in the legal frame who are saying that, hey, wait a minute, once we look at all the information, once we see the Pedro Polikoff photographs, once we see that 15 of these officers actually were arrested for perjury and other offenses, once we see all these discrepancies in what happened in the hospital versus what happened out on the street, all these things that occur, legal folks tell us we're not sure why he's still in prison at this time, right?
Legally, it makes absolutely no sense.
Come on, brother.
Legally,
law being used to uphold keeping people in their place, then it clicks.
That's right.
Yes,
and
so legally spent an extra 10 years on death row when he
come on, Jamal. And
that doesn't make any sense.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so for me, I'm not even in a space now to sort of, when I'm interviewed, to like relitigate the case, because there's already so much information out there that if you're not doing your due diligence, then you're telling me that you're not actually serious about the work. I want you to do your due diligence, read the books, Read the information. It's public information. Check it out for yourself. The brother needs to come home, just like all the other brothers had to come home as well.
This is definitely his time. Definitely time. Go
Baba
ahead,
Zahid,
Go
when
ahead,
we
Chuck.
talk about Shaq and he not showing the film in his theater, which is laughable, right? You know, because to many people, you know, Shaq may be a hero, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
you know, I have this quote, and my grandpa laughs every time I say it. I say, "Man, the youth have the wrong heroes. They looking up to the wrong people, right?" And it's not saying that Shaq is not to be looked up for his basketball achievement, but understanding that the cultural revolution is driven by the people, right? Like there has to be a cultural revolution that will lead into the political revolution that we need, right? We talk about the Panthers, but it was as much as a cultural revolution as it was a political one.
Okay, this town was one
And
of the
you know,
bases for that cultural revolution. This is Newark, New Jersey. This is Barackaville,
I,
baby.
yeah, y'all was talking about Juice a little earlier, man. I remember New Jersey Drive was my
No, and
that
that's a
was my
Newark story.
favorite.
That's a Bergen Street Newark story.
Indeed.
But you know, it really comes down to like Shaq as being what I refer to as a blue checkmark person, right? Blue checkmark people feed off the cultural revolution, and that cultural revolution is driven by the people. The people have to move these blue checkmark people to let them know what's important, because people might perceive that you know, people that might be winning in capitalism know what's important. No, they don't, right? We know what's important, and we have to drive them, right? So when we're thinking about you know, how come Shaq, you know, kind of stood up and made sure that my grandfather's film wasn't shown in his theater. We have to think about, well, Shaq might not be politically activated, right? And a lot of these individuals who are winning that capitalism, they feel good about not being politically activated. They feel like it doesn't affect them anymore, but it affects everybody. It affects them. It affects us. And you know, driving this cultural revolution, it's going to be shows like this one that's being had today.
Yeah.
And real quick, Baba Zahid and Brother Jamal, we have to also flip it and do the opposite, which is to say, yeah, we're gonna say that Shaq did what he did, but we also want to say, hey, do you know Maya Angelou? By the way, she was a staunch supporter of Mumia Abu-Jamal. Hey, do you know the
Yep.
actor Giancarlo Esposito, who was in Breaking Bad and School
Right.
Days?
He's in the
yeah, he's a
film.
supporter of Mumia Abu-Jamal.
That's right.
In other words,
Yeah,
we want
Ruby
to
D, Daniel Glover.
That's right. Turn
exactly.
it on. Turn
We
it
want
on.
to highlight, because see, it's one thing to get stuck in the negative
Tupac
part of it,
was a
right?
supporter of
But we,
Mumia Abu-Jamal.
That's right.
a
That's
million
right.
percent, a million percent.
Most
Nas,
famous
Public
cub.
Enemy, use the names that people are familiar with in pop culture, right? And then utilize that to bring in and mobilize folks. That's what organizing 101. Vic Mensa, who our young people know right now is one of the younger artists on to Rock Nation, all this kind of good stuff out of Chicago, made a whole song about it, included it in his new record about 4 years
That's
ago.
right. That's
In other
right.
words, how do we utilize that? Asia Monet, another phenomenal poet, you know what I mean, doing her thing. They just traveled to have their event in Ghana. The point being, we can always focus on Shaq. Let's put even more energy and say, these folk people been doing it for years.
That's
and
right.
guess what? If they can, you can too. Be empowered, be inspired. Let's get to work.
That's right. By the way, Jamal has over his right shoulder, because I didn't get a chance to lift up Steve Vittoria, right, who did the film, right? A white boy from Newark. Check that out. Right? Not only did he do the film with Mumia, but over Jamal's shoulder is one of the 3 volumes of an epic
Murder
book.
Incorporated, yeah.
Murder Incorporated. Now, us older heads, Professor Pritchett, ride with me with this. Us older heads, we remember the groundbreaking work of Howard Zinn, A People's History of the United States.
Mhm.
In that vein, a journalist in prison fighting for his life with a white boy from Newark put out 3 volumes that are in that same stream under these incredible circumstances, right? How we gonna lose with what we riding with? Huh? How we gonna lose?
Yeah.
Win? No, we
Well,
gonna win. Now let's bring it up to that because I don't want us to run over this segment too much because we got other guests coming on that I
But
gotta
Jamal,
behave.
can you bring those? Can you bring it up front so we can see it, or no, it can't come off the wall?
Yeah, it's on the
oh, everything
shelf.
comes off the wall. I cycle my
Okay.
wall often.
Murder
Okay.
Incorporated, 3 volumes.
This is
We
this is
should
the
have
one
it
that
at
I'm
Source of
currently
Knowledge
reading.
Bookstore, right?
This
There
is
you go,
book 3.
Okay.
right?
It's a
3
trilogy.
volumes. I mean, it's great stuff, and some heavy
Yeah,
stuff on slave uprisings in Jersey. In one of the volumes, 2 Jersey heads. There's
There you
some great. It's a powerful. I am so proud of those 2, right? And Steve was not quiet when we started putting Long Distance Revolutionary back out. He was proud that we did that showing right here in Newark, and that other folks are picking it up in other cities as a part of the community, grounding that we'll continue to do. So let's move ahead. Let's jump ahead now to March 11th. What's going to happen next weekend, right? So we can round this up the way we need to.
Yes, sir. Live in Philadelphia, family. We're gonna be here. Shout out again because it's been mentioned already. The Mumia United Nations Liaison Group, right, which is made up of some phenomenal folks. Michael Schiffman, again, Mama Julia, again, Dr. Johanna Fernandez, and many others, bearing witness in the case of Mumia Abu Jamal. Again, thanks Todd Burrows for putting it in the chat. And bearing witness allows us to look at the legal framework, right? I think oftentimes we have our rallies, we have our conversations and teachings. This is really going to be looking at this legal piece, right? And so we're going to hear from Reverend Judge Wendell Griffin, who's been mentioned already today during this conversation. We're going to hear from the great Dr. Cornell West, providing his commentary on what's going on with this case. We're going to hear from, again, I mentioned earlier, Pedro Polikoff with his specific photographs. He was the first photographer actually on the crime scene back in 1981.
Evidence, ding dong.
Evidence. Come on, brother. We're going to have Dr. Johanna Fernandez, again, historian and filmmaker and activist in this movement.
Johanna's weapon. The young Lord.
Say her name again. Say that
Johanna
name.
Fernandez.
She's been on here before.
Yes.
Yes,
Right.
indeed.
We haven't had her on his book. We've had her on Mumia. We got to get her on her own book because that was a groundbreaking piece that she did. Keep riding, Gabe.
Yes, indeed. No problem. Just added, Dr. Mark Lamont Hill is going to be here, and this is going to be also a co-sponsorship with good folks over at Uncle Bobby's Coffee and Books here in Philadelphia, moderated by the great Lynn Washington Jr., who's obviously, again, one of our radical journalists, movement journalists, somebody who's been so critical. I might say a few things as well on the stage, but I don't want to focus on me. I really want to share and say that also we've been mobilizing with some of the Black clergy, and so we're going to have some Black clergy involved, which, as again, I really want to pinpoint some of these organizational pieces, because in order to build the movement, this is what Jamal always says. Jamal always says, look, how can we be bold enough to reach out to corridors and centers that perhaps we haven't hit yet or in a while? And so being able to have
some ideas on that one.
Clergy,
I'll be on the next Wednesday. Well, I can't be on next Wednesday's call. We got an event, but I got a solid idea that we could do on that to really coalesce on that front. Right on.
Indeed. So 2 to 4 p.m. We're going to be at again Saturday, March 11th, 2 to 4 p.m. We're going to be at First United Methodist Church of Germantown at 6001 Germantown Avenue. Again, that's 6001 Germantown Avenue. Again, First United Methodist Church of Germantown, Philly, PA 19144. Again, 2 to 4 p.m. It also will be live streamed. All right. So, you'll be able to see it live. If you can't make it live in person, go to Linktree/Mumia. Again, Linktree/Mumia to get more information and to get the live stream.
Awesome. Great segment, y'all. Great segment. All right. Now, Donna, right? We have 2 guests who have not been with us before, right? Tova's been with us before, but when the older we get, Tova, we just enjoy messing with old heads with this question.
Wise heads.
So go ahead and drop our ritual question so we can take this out.
So I want to start with Jamal. And Jamal, I'm sorry I got to miss your whole segment, so you have to come back and repeat everything word for word. No, you don't. You got to come back and visit us again. But Jamal, this is a hip hop political show. So we like to ask our guests, what hip hop artist, individual or group are you listening to when you're going out and doing the work that you need to, maybe before you go speak? Who inspires you? Again, hip hop individual or group?
Who inspires me? Wow. Musically, who inspires me?
Hip hop individual, hopefully. I mean, we that's who we would love because it's a hip hop show. But if you had to go somewhere
To
else,
be
who
honest,
value?
the last speech, public speech I did, I think it was like sometimes they run into each other. Was at the Longshoremen's protest, and Fred Hampton Jr. was there, Frederica was there. There was a lot of people there, and I was listening to "Loyalty" by Kendrick and Rihanna, but I will lie and say that like that's what inspires me. I think what inspires me the most will be "Fear of a Black Planet." Like that album always jams me and gets me like ready to go. It's like jazz but hip hop, and I love it. So by Public Enemy.
Then Mr. Chuck, we have been talking about Chuck, because Chuck has got this run on 50 years of hip hop that everybody's looking at right now too, and that's our segue to our next segment. By the way, with our host Rhino, DJ Rhino, who'll be with us in a minute. Gabe, you next.
Oh man, so I'm gonna be honest and say that oftentimes I'm actually in a more of a 70s soul, Curtis Mayfield, Harold Melvin vibe going to spaces, only because that kind of energy, I need a little bit of Gil Scott Heron, honestly. But when I do got to get fired up, and Baba Zaid knows this, sometimes I got to get on the bullhorn and start leading folks.
Right.
Definitely throw on "Let's Get Free" from Dead Prez. Just the first few songs give me
Ed Prez, yes.
Yeah. I throw on that "Let's Get Free." I just remember, for me, it came to me at a pivotal time in my development, my political development. In college, and for us as student organizers, it came at a critical point for us as Black students who were trying to figure out our way through, organizing. You know what I mean? And so not only were they race conscious, but they were class conscious. And so I always think about that album, about that Perez, "Let's Get Free." And the beautiful thing about it is that, as y'all all know, M1 has continued to support and stick Mumia Abu Jamal through the years.
That's right. With their music, in person, in concert, in the streets, they've been there. They've been there. Absolutely. In fact, that their leader, right, Omali Yeshitela, but we're talking about the continued legacy of police and political repression, right, is now facing charges, right, by virtue of them being attacked by the FBI. Talking about they were working with some Russians trying to interfere in American elections. Wow. It's the biggest joke ever told, but it ain't funny because the charges are real.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So this work has broad implications. Mumia is not an isolated incident. Right. The question of political repression has been with our struggle from its inception, and there's a whole new wave coming out, a whole new generation that we need to talk about. We need to stand in solidarity with the drive to stop Cop City. Right. We need to condemn that killing of that young brother from Panama who was a Forrest offender. Just shot the boy to pieces.
Yeah.
Right. Non-violent.
Killed a nature activist.
You see you camping, and you getting killed by the state. No, we
crazy.
Solidarity matters. March 9th is a day of action.
Yes, sir.
In solidarity with the call to stop Cop City. We want to shout that out. And we've been trying to get somebody to come on the show. As soon as we can make that connect, we will definitely do that. So it's been real. Y'all hold March 11th. All roads lead to Philly, right?
Real quick too, Baba.
Letter. Go ahead, Greg. I'm sorry,
too, Baba, and because I would be remiss if we did also acknowledge, even though it's a month away, still, Mumia turned 69 April 24th.
April 24th.
And so we still also want to keep that on our radars. Stay tuned for what's going to be happening for around that date, but April 24th as well for his 69th birthday.
Absolutely. Any last words?
Yeah, even before then, we're getting ready to, once Judge Clemens drops her
Come on.
decision,
Thank you,
the
Tova.
day
Thank
the
you.
day after that decision, we're asking folks in cities across the country to have actions at their local federal courthouse, and we're planning that in Newark. We're looking for people to come to the federal building on Broad Street the day after that decision is dropped. So join us there. Look for that announcement.
All my pop all my pop field slaves, right? Do Justice Monday, damn, did at least 300 until COVID hit. We definitely got to
Yeah,
come out for
yeah,
Mumia
yeah.
on that day or at that day after, like we're talking about, right? Okay,
Thank
y'all.
you,
Right on.
Baba Zaid.
Go ahead, Jamal. Go ahead. I'm
I haven't
sorry.
seen you I haven't seen you in a few months, but you still looking young.
I ain't dead
Still
yet.
looking young out here. Thank you. I would. Uh, so we are definitely asking all cities that support Mumia to organize at the local courthouse the day after Judge Clemens drops her decision. And this is because we need that connected solidarity to really bolster Philadelphia, where, Philadelphia had to experience so much erasure and so much, political and media attacks when it comes to Mumia Abu Jamal. Like they're afraid to mention his name because they don't want a 1999 super protest to go down, right? So we have to let people know that we care about him, right? Like I care about him because he has because he has my father's face. But everybody else is caring about him and loving him for 40 years. And he always says the people's love is what keeps him up. It
Yeah.
keeps him going, right? He always talks about love is the most powerful thing in the universe, and it gets me up out of my and I'm like, dude, like
You starting to
let's get
sound
this.
like a boy. Go ahead.
But we're doing that, and we're doing that together, right? We're also doing a video challenge on lovenotphear.com or love not fear on all social media. The video challenge is very simply, why does Mumia inspire you, and what do you love about Mumia, and how does he inspire the community? And at the end, we want people to challenge others to make that video because
And we're
it
talking
has
about
to
a
be a
short
positive
video too.
protest.
Mm-hmm.
A short video. I'm talking about 30 seconds, something to repost, and we're gonna
I don't know if I can
actually,
do it in 30 seconds. That's gonna be nuts for my ass.
hey man, 30 seconds to a minute. And the
Well,
reason
and
why is
Jamal, and I don't know. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but give
no,
people
you're fine.
instructions about that because in some spaces you only can post 30 a minute or 30 minutes or less. So instruct people, that you might want them to do a 30-second. I'm sorry, a 30-second because
Yeah.
sometimes you can't repost over 30 seconds, and there's
Yeah,
in
that's
other
because it's
spaces
important for
you
IT
can't
at
Well,
this
post.
well,
time, right?
Yeah.
when you record your video, if you tag at Love Not Fear, fear spelled with PHEAR, we will repost it, and we will curate it and chop it up if it is a little bit longer, right? Brenda, my partner, she actually handles all of that social media. She's like the social media guru, and she's getting that all done. But the reason why this is important, we are living in an age where capitalism is crushing most people, right? Most people can't even work a 40-hour a week job and survive. They got to work 80 hours, right? They got to work 60 hours. They got to do multiple streams of incomes and hustles. People can't get out in the streets like 2020 where they didn't have a job to get to, right?
Mm.
So if you can't get out in the streets, and if you can't make it to March 11th, and if you can't make it to the courthouse rally, please just record a video, and we can protest digitally, right? We got your back. And again, that's Love Not Fear, PHEAR, on all social media. If you need the message, is love not fear at gmail.com. And,
And
we're
can you
going to
put
keep
that in
on
the
keeping
chat so
on.
we can repost it?
I got it.
Oh,
Oh, you
cool,
got it.
cool.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And we're gonna keep on keeping on. I love you, Baba Zaid. Like every time I
Love
see
you too,
you,
son.
you like you be out there preach. I'm like, dude, I need to get this dude on radio. Turns out he's already doing it. you know,
And
um,
Jamal, and
I,
what you said is serious. People, eggs were just 6.99 for a dozen. Gas was 5.99 a gallon. What you just said is very serious about what people can do. And when you're choosing between this and that, it's really serious. So what you're saying is 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 very, very on time in terms of how expensive things are right now.
It's
And
also
on
All of this
purpose.
stuff is
And on
important.
purpose.
is in too, by the way.
Yeah, all of this stuff is important to everybody, right? But people, I can't blame people for choosing their families,
Right.
right? Like, but all of these issues is very important to everybody. I have yet to come across somebody to tell me they hate Mumia, right? I get so many people that says, "Man, I love Mumia and I wish him free, but I get
Hmm.
to work," you know,
Right.
I love Mumia, you know, and what can I do? What can I help? And we are doing it now, right? We are helping and we are figuring out how to crack this code because Pennsylvania has been very, very vindictive in the case of Mumia Abu Jamal. It is personal to them. That's why he hasn't received justice in over 40 years when every single opportunity they get anybody else out of prison, they held my grandfather,
That's right.
right? This needs to be personal to us.
That's right. That's
Mm.
I
right.
love you all.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna say,
it
and
is personal.
Jamal,
That's
and
right.
the young basketball player. Oh God, why did she leave me? She just from Russia. She just got
Brittany Griner.
Are you talking about Brittany
Brittany.
Garner, a
Brittany,
political
yeah.
prisoner? Yeah.
Yeah, and she was just on the NAACP awards, and that was her charge to everybody. Think about people who are behind the wall and figure out. I don't remember her words, but her words, she definitely left a charge for us to don't forget the people that are behind the wall.
Mumia is not forgetting the people that's behind his wall,
That's
right?
That's
right.
right.
He's speaking up for everybody, and I'm like,
He
Pops,
has
we need to
always
get you free. He was like, man, I got to do what I got to do. Everybody needs help, egg.
You said it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be like, man, what you want from this vending machine? No, I'm just playing.
You don't want nothing from that vending machine. We're gonna get him some apples and
Yeah,
stuff.
but that's one of the
well,
that's one
well,
of
well,
his rackets though.
well, we need to get him some freedom. But the vending
Yeah.
There you
machine
go.
is very important because he's an elder. He survived double bypass
That's
just
right.
last
Hmm.
year, right?
Right.
Mad health
Hmm.
concerns. The
That's right.
prison is not designed for elders to survive and live there,
Right.
No.
especially ones that have health concerns. The
That's right.
only way to get my grandfather something green is in a visiting room. How about
Yep.
that?
Mm.
That's right.
How
Right.
about that?
Mm.
Like they're trying their best to do a murder to an elder by neglect, medical neglect. And in my case, that's called elder abuse.
That's
Mhm.
right.
So
Sir,
join in on this fight because once
we can.
Mumia's like we're not free until Mumia's free. And his freedom does mean the freedom of many political prisoners.
His Dr. Alvarez, also left coast, right? Straight out of
He
Cali.
just called me.
Yeah, that's
He just
right.
called me.
I tell him we
He
said,
blowing
hey,
up my phone.
we've had him on. We've had him on. We've had him on. We need to get him back on, right? But he said the best treatment for Mumia is his freedom.
That's right.
Mm.
That's what he
Yeah,
said.
Mumia's
He
freedom
said
is
new
the only
doctor.
treatment.
He said his best treatment is his freedom,
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
right? Because the way that our
Uh,
elders are done, and that's another piece to this movement too. There's a whole national campaign to release, the aging in prison. I mean, at some point, it's just ridiculous to keep people locked up who just, have lived out their life.
we're the only country on the planet that does this
Mm.
to our
And
elders.
Pennsylvania is one of the states and one of the places in the world that doles out the longest natural sentences in prison time.
Yeah.
Cash for kids. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm. Mm.
We don't went way over this segment, but it's all good.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I love you all. You know I'm a ham. I keep going.
That's how we
but,
all
We'll
get
have,
it.
we will have you back tomorrow.
All power to the people, y'all.
yeah,
All power. That's right.
all
All
power
power.
to the people. Yeah.
Power of the
On to,
people.
on to March 11th, and then let's turn it up on Sister Judge so she gets it right.
That's right.
I'm
That's the
watching
goal.
New Jersey Drive tonight.
I was just talking about that last week. Okay.
All right, y'all.
All right, peace.
Let's give we
Much
gotta
love,
get
y'all. Free
all right,
more.
right on, y'all.
New Jersey Drive.
Lotus
Whew.
segment. Lotus segment. Uh, Lotus segment. Where's our great DJ Rhino? Is he there?
Not yet. Um,
Okay, so we're gonna have to hold a fort and get ready to transition to Congressman Payne. It's almost time for the Payne report. Um, I know he's not there yet. So y'all, we got a couple minutes. Well, he just faded on out. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, Dr. Pritchett, appreciate you hanging out with us.
Well,
Dr. Pritchett is staying the whole
Yeah,
show
he
with
hanging
us.
out,
Yeah, he's our
hanging out
guest
with these
host for today.
insurgent young folks that
well,
I've been fired up
He's
for
our
decades.
let me
co-host.
mention something as I listen as you every week when you ask about hip hop orientation and what people
Mhm.
are into. Let me share a moment with you about my first years teaching at my first university, which was Rider University,
Mm.
1969.
Wow.
But I was director of financial aid and worked in admissions. And they hired me, and we never had a need to talk about race or anything in the interviews. And then I worked there for a few days and noticed something strange. And I called the president up, who was a part of the interview process for myself, and I said, "How many adult colored people work here?" Because I ain't seen none in a week. He calls me back and he said, "You are it."
Mm.
And I say that because 400 years of oppression, in a sense, fell upon, in terms of the mantle, fell upon my shoulders
That's right.
at Ryder. I was not called there to be a diversity officer nor affirmative action. But when students needed to vent about their issues, the few EOF students they had on campus, they sought me out in a sense, and I became. But in that context, here we go.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
come home at night, and I had my drive to get there from where I lived in North Jersey. I had a 75-minute drive.
Ooh.
You talk about capitalism and prices. I hate to tell you, folks, but here it comes. Gas was 25 cents a gallon.
Oh my goodness. 19 said one hell of a year, boy.
There you go. But
Woo!
within 1 year of me working there, gas went up overnight by 400%. Went
Right.
up to 99 cents a gallon.
Right.
And
In the mix of recession.
anybody
Yes.
with two,
Yes.
2 ounces of sense could figure out there's something wrong here. This smells. And if you read the New York Times, let's say, for example, people like Donald Trump and others that took out full-page ads trying to blame all the oil-producing nations and the Middle East and in Africa, they call them OPEC,
OPEC.
the
That's right.
oil-producing exporting nation countries.
That's right.
They tried to get us to really go into this brown hatred mode. And but I had to set the context for people. So when I would get home at night, I would go down into the basement of the house so I could recover from my rough days. I had to put on what I believe will be the found before hip hop. Who did I put on but the High Lord, the High Prophet of all good things in music? It would have been Marvin Gaye. And Marvin Gaye's album, What's Going On?
Oh,
That
wow.
said it all. That would speak to my spirits. I would turn all the lights out and sit there in the dark
Yeah.
and let Marvin minister to my spirit. Brothers, 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 sisters, sisters, what's going on? He reminded us that somebody's got to look out for the children
Mm.
because children get,
Mercy, mercy me.
yes,
Mother
And,
of environmental justice.
yes,
Yes.
indeed.
Way
and,
back
re-
then.
and remember, Common redid it.
Yes, amen. And I think Jay-Z used to do a lot of sampling with that and so forth. So I share that because it speaks to another topic altogether, which is self-care. We
And
didn't
and
have
if
the prompts
Young
eventually.
folks are teaching me that.
They
and
did
if you
that.
and Dr. Pritchard,
Absolutely.
if you had to picture Marvin, was he one of the writers on that song? Do we know?
He might have been,
Um,
but he
oh,
wasn't. He was an instrumentalist in the sense of
yeah.
he was
So
an
just imagine,
instrumentalist.
could you imagine what his day was like? Like what was going on? And he grabbed his pen and pencil, and sometimes it's not even about grabbing a pen and pencil. It's just going into the studio.
Yep.
Zaid, you're an artist. Like what? could have possibly been going on that he probably grabbed a pen, hit the piano, and just maybe it started out as a prayer, him speaking, and then
Mm.
like what
So much
how
was
did that
happening. I
manifest?
mean, there was a
Right.
lot going on. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
for him to come up with a what's going on made all the sense in the
Mhm.
world.
Oh yeah.
Him and any other writers, right? Because I mean,
Yes.
it was a nucleus of Motown writers that understood the climate too. I mean, so Marvin was a particular voice with a, that could carry a message in that unique way that he could with his voice,
Yes.
and they wrote for him. But there was a lot to write about. There was a lot to write about.
Oh yeah.
69, was the big, that hard turn in those Nixon years, right?
Mhm.
He escalated the attacks on the various movements,
Yes, he
particularly
did.
the Black Panther Party. Black Panther Party lost 28 people in that year alone,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes.
And they weren't defenseless. They shot back in some of them in battles too, and there were casualties on the other side. But the escalation of all that, and a lot of folks wound up in prison. You started seeing white kids getting shot on college campuses in the
Oh
peace
yeah.
movement. It was a heavy time, right? On the
Kent
culture
State
front,
University, Ohio.
Woodstock, the soul concert that just has been
Mhm.
rediscovered. All of that was happening. So you had
Right.
this
Yeah.
it's this cultural movement forward, this political movement forward, but you had a stiffer hand of repression coming down against it too. So it was a heavy time.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
beginning of the war on drugs, infusion of heroin on our streets. That's what
Sure.
sent
Mhm.
to the wall, right?
I actually
All of that.
Mhm.
started I watched the soul concert the other night, and who what's my drummer's name from the from the Roots? What's the drum who did the soul concert? And he got an award for it. Who's the drummer from the Roots?
Yeah. I got you. I got you.
Yeah,
Everybody knows
yeah,
about
Yeah, we
yeah,
can
and
sing them in our head. We can
yeah,
sing them.
but and as he was talking about what was going on, like you said, referencing, Woodstock and all of that, but even the movie The Temptations, and then and
Questlove.
how they
Great
and how they
Questlove.
Questlove, and how they made reference to the song it was the something of September that
The
day
3rd of
I'll always
September. Day
it
I'll
was
always
yeah
remember.
that day it was a day and but in
Mhm.
the movie they kind of put the theatrics around what brought that song, and I don't know if that was just like artists or was it really true, but it's something like it's just it was heavy
Oh yeah.
times, and how they could just and thank God for pen and paper and a guitar and a piano that helps us get through some of those times.
Absolutely. And the breakthrough James Brown song. Now, when I say this, I'm talking about message in the music. And I always ask today's generation, what is your body and your mind moving to? What are you listening to? Because when James Brown made the decision in the midst of the riots, I was what then called riots, the rebellions and the burning of cities, and James Brown comes out with "I'm black and I am proud."
He had to be
You
pushed to
know,
that.
millions of people.
The
And
movement pushed him
teaching
to that.
and teaching kids.
People don't realize he
I thought
affected
you was
him.
gonna say the Big Pay. I used to love the Big Payback. Oh, I love
That
that
was one of my
song.
favorites. Yeah, that's several years
Yeah.
later, right? And that was
Hmm.
a soundtrack. But a lot of people don't realize that the movement and the party in particular put a lot of pressure on James to do that, right?
Mm.
People don't realize James Brown was a Republican.
Yep,
Hmm.
yep, yep.
Most of his adult life, he was a Republican, right?
Yes.
He was the godfather of soul. He had the music, but it wasn't statedly political until the movement said, you godfather. You got to come up with something, bro. Fred used to sweat him a lot. Fred Hampton, we lost Fred Hampton in 1969. He was one of those Panthers that got killed during that year, one of those 28.
Yeah.
So it was an incredible time. I can remember it as a kid.
Yes.
I'm 10 years old. Watching everything from tanks to the Mets, because that's what
Yes.
69 was,
Yes.
right? The 69 Mets, right? But it
Hmm.
was an incredible time. It was an
Oh
incredible
yeah.
time.
And I said to my brother, because we had what's the things that they held the tanks in? What's that on William Street?
The armory.
Armory.
Mhm.
And I'm born in '67, but my older brother And I was asking him, like we in Orange, but what do you remember during, the uprising and when things were going on? And he said, and I think you said the same things. He can remember seeing the tanks come down Main Street, headed
Central
down.
Avenue. I
And you
saw them on
seen
that
Central
Central.
Avenue. Yeah,
Yeah.
he seen them on Main, leaving the Armory, headed to Main Street, and
Hmm.
headed down north, and and so there was an Armory in Orange, and where else was there Armory at?
There were several. There were several around.
Yeah.
Between here and
Well,
There
North.
was one right in
Yeah,
the it was quiet. Just kept this one right in Newark in the North Ward.
from the
oh yeah.
North. Mhm.
Matter of fact, my bride and I, we had our first apartment in West Orange. So I want
Mhm.
everybody to visualize this. On like one end of the line, you got Newark, then you got East Orange, and you come on out to West Orange. We didn't have the
Mhm.
tanks on the streets, but we did have the National Guard deployed. And I had one
Mhm.
of those moments where you could call it my come to Jesus. I was already with Jesus, but I was attending the New School for Social Research in New York City, and I would get back in, go over on the bus. I'd be getting back after midnight, and one night my wife wanted me to go and do some shopping, like 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning. And in a West Orange, we had a grocery convenience store that would stay open 24/7. And I'm walking up and down the aisles, putting our little groceries in my basket. And this 18-year-old National Guardsman is walking about 50 feet behind me with his rifle.
Mm.
And all I could do was, when I got behind them aisles, I said, Lord, I wonder what this boy thinks about the drill. Because if he don't like it, is he gonna wait until I'm out of sight? Then he's gonna blow me away. So I started praying and
Mm.
perspiring the whole time that
Oh, that's
let me get out of this store alive. I had to share that with people, because you talking about Black Lives Matter now, Black Lives Matter then.
That's
I,
right.
I still I tell that story. They said, "What, in West Orange?" I said, "Yes." They deployed them right up that line coming straight out.
That's right.
Parked at all of that.
And as we pause with that story, we will pause because if you see Congressman
Yes,
Payne
he
here,
is.
it must be the first of the month. It must be the
All
first
right.
time
Friday
for
of
the
the month.
pain report.
It's time for the Payne
Well,
report.
we were
This is
worried
What's
about
that?
you not getting a link. We had an issue with the link, Congressman. We want to make sure you got the link and it was all good. Glad to
I
see you.
too. Hold up.
okay. He said, "Hold up."
Oh, yeah.
All right.
what's
How's
what's that?
everybody?
What shirt you wearing? Number 20. What number's on that shirt?
Oh, that's Run DMP.
Run.
My campaign shirt for 20 for
Oh, okay. I
22 for
got
the
you. Run
Congress.
DMP. All
He
right.
was
Yeah.
Run DMP. That's nice. Okay. Look at
And
you, look at you, a hip hop head.
And
Run
that he
DMP.
looking like a hip hop congressman. Check him out. Well,
yeah,
we got somebody hanging out with us tonight, Congressman Payne. We got an elder scholar in the house, right? To
Oh,
join our
yeah.
conversation.
all
So how
right.
about that?
Oh, every time Congressman Payne may be on the Seton Hall campus, sometimes he's not there at the beginning of a program. Sometimes he gets there in the middle, and all the seats are taken up. And I always want to get up and make sure if he wants to sit down, he go get a seat. But I'm always looking out for his interest, because he puts in some
Good,
long days. But
That's
we always
right.
appreciate
good
it.
to see you.
He and the family supporting the legacy of the Payne name at Seton Hall also.
That's right.
How about
Yeah,
that?
And you
we really
you open the segment up, Ed, or what
But Congressman, well, first off, obviously, welcome everybody to the Payne Report with our beloved brother, Congressman Donald M. Payne Jr. The M stands for making things happen.
Run
So,
DMP,
so,
make
so,
things happen.
so, Professor Pritchett, so the history of his father being graduating from Seton Hall and all of that.
Yes, sir. That is to say, I came to know it. I
Oh,
wasn't living through it, but when I did, because I think also the other brother, Bill, had on occasion had just stopped me on campus years ago. He planted in my mind to say he did not think that Seton Hall was handling his brother's legacy properly. So he woke
Yeah,
me
that
up.
would be Uncle Bill. That would be
Yeah,
correct.
yeah. But But he let me know, so we start putting the time in. I think we've corrected that to the best of our ability at this point.
Absolutely, absolutely. We donated all of my father's papers to Seton Hall. It was some interesting on his last few days there. There were some people that came to see him and were, promising him all these things they were going to do in his name. He was going slowly, and
Yes.
I think we were in D.C. at the hospital, and somebody mentioned that they wanted to do something at Rutgers, and he wasn't speaking too much, but he looked up and he said Seton Hall, so he made sure it happened at Seton Hall. So very, very delighted about that.
That's right. So what's
So I still go to Seton Hall. I'm still a season ticket basketball holder. So I stick with the Pirates. I tell people I've been going to Seton Hall basketball games for 55 years.
wow? Since you was 1 years old.
Yeah. But it was the one thing my father and I did together for relaxation, and so now I still buy the seats that we had, and sometimes I just go alone, and just just there and have know his spirit is there, and so
beautiful. I like that.
Yeah, it's a good memory and a good tradition to continue. So
well, you hang in there with that and support the team.
Absolutely. And I'm supposed to be on campus soon to speak to the what's the name of the group, the Young Black Men of Distinction, or
Black Men of Standard. Yes, Black Men of Standard.
I'm supposed to be seeing them very soon, and I made sure I remind the administration that I want to be involved with them. Not on a off and on basis, but I want to be a regular contributor to whatever they're doing, and however I can help them.
Yes, sir. I got it.
The group, very impressive group of young men.
Yes, sir.
So, I was at the library, and the young lady that works in the archiving section, she was just showing me how and the way they have the papers is very accessible that you can get to, and I'm going page by page because he gave his yearbook. So now I'm at the part I'm going through his yearbook. So he gave a lot of paper, and the young lady who's working with the archives, she said, "Oh my!" She just couldn't. She was so excited. She was saying his papers is just so overwhelming just to be able to read and touch and just go through that history. So. That was good. I'm glad that to learn how to do that and just go through it and to know you knew the man.
Yeah, I really need to go up there and take a look. I probably can learn a lot. I know a lot, but I can learn a lot as well. He was a very quiet person, and he spoke when he needed to say something. He wasn't a pontificator, and I think I've kind of taken up that. We're better listeners. I think my uncle doesn't speak for us. We're the listeners, but So I just came off of the Democratic retreat. We were in Baltimore for 3 days.
Okay.
Looking at strategies and how to take back the House, and had some very, very good, downtime to, just to relax and get to know each other, but a lot of very interesting panels, and the president came, and the vice president came, and the governor of Maryland spoke to us, and the mayor of Baltimore. So we had quite a lineup of guest speakers as well. So it was very fruitful event.
And you just and it was a Democratic retreat.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We do it once a year.
Okay.
And, um, you know, talk about different issues and things that we want to address and how to deal with these Republicans and what have you. Let me see if I can just grab the book here.
The agenda.
Yeah. Hold on. And it was interesting with our new leadership now, Hakeem Jeffries and Catherine Clark.
Mhm.
The issue 2023 Issues Conference, People Over Politics is our theme. And then we had a plenary session looking to the future, an agenda to lower costs, grow the economy, and expand opportunity. We're winning the narrative on safety, accountability, and justice, leading with solutions, not scare tactics. What does the heartland mean to us? Because we have a very difficult time in the Congress. We're accused, the Democrats, we're only coastal. We only we care about the East Coast and the West Coast, and we don't care about the heartland. So that's something that we're trying to win back. The Ohio's, the Michigans, the center of the country. They feel that we don't address their issues. We're coastal elitists. That's what we are. Then the Honorable Wes Moore spoke, and
Oh, okay.
then Joseph Biden came on at 6, and then we had a plenary falling. Plenary.
Westmore has been on fire. What the Westmore? He's and so his state was the host because he's been on fire. What was some of his goals that he really wanted to deal with?
Yeah, yeah. He was really good. So we've had all different times. We had telling our story, people over politics. And so it was very, very,
And,
very
and, and
enlightening.
Congressman, you always say how the Republicans generally have 5 issues, and the Dems um, are people over politics. So today, if you come and this is the issue, and then tomorrow that's the issue, and it's affecting the people, the Dems are people over politics. It's like, oh, that's not in our 5 issues. We're not going to help you. You
Right.
really deal, that's the Dems. To sometimes we may say to their fault, but because they care, they deal with people's
Well, what
issues.
it is, we're such a big tent. We're not exclusive. I mean, they
Right.
talk abortion, the Supreme Court, and lowering no new taxes. Those are their three. Those are their three things, and they have run the drill since Ronald Reagan and have accomplished where they wanted to go, and they have been consistent in that message, and it is finally led them to where they want to go. We have to do that, but we're such a large tent. I mean, we're LGBTQ, we're straight, we're we're religious, we're non-religious, we're black, we're white, we're Hispanic, we're Asian. It's a big tent. The Republican Party is talking about they're the most diverse they've ever been, and they've got 3 blacks. So I mean, the Congressional Black Caucus is 58 now.
Mhm.
We're the largest caucus in the Dem caucus, and we're going to be looking at some things where we can shake some things up and exhibit our power,
Mhm.
um, so we can get things done, for our constituents. We
But you
people
are. I'm
are
sorry.
we represent like 60, 70 million people, but only 18 million are black. So a lot of us, are some of those are majority white districts that they're in. So to be able to maneuver to deal with black issues for some of our colleagues, could be a little minefield. But they're committed. We're there to talk about the issues that are important to black folks. And a lot of us are not apologetic about it. I mean, they do the same thing for theirs, so why not we do it for ours? That's very simple. I'm not a complicated guy.
Mm. Yeah. What committee are you on now, Congressman? What
I'm still
committees?
on the same two committees. I'm a Homeland Security and I'm
Hmm.
on Transportation Infrastructure.
Infrastructure, transportation infrastructure,
Yeah.
and business. Whether you're sitting on it or not, it's still gonna be your baby. Small business.
Oh, I never, you know, it's funny. I do more work in areas that I'm not on the committees. I do more healthcare and small business than I do the other ones. It's strange, but those are the things that are important to my community. So, I have to address them.
Well, we appreciate you addressing, and I think we talked about your former colleague, and now she's over housing
HUD, yeah,
HUD, yeah, over HUD and the work that she's been going around dealing with appraisals. And I know she's been from I've heard her on at least two different stations talking about the work that they're going to do to make sure that there's some that that they break ground on making sure that whether your house is in Orange or South Orange, if it's worth 500,000, it's worth 500,000, and not a
right,
difference because of your zip code. So,
right. She uses the example of her home.
hmm,
She has a home, the same block as some white people, and her house is valued less than theirs. She's got a bigger lot and everything, bigger home. And because she's black, her house is valued less than the folks down the street. So she says, "No, that's got to stop. That makes no sense." She's also looking at making 8A funding um, uh, allow for people to buy homes because this whole thing towards renting is not good. I mean, the one way African Americans gain any wealth is through
Ability,
buying
home
homes.
ownership. That's right.
almost.
I'm trying
So
to do that for the first time.
yeah, this moving towards renting everything is counterproductive for our community because where do you build the wealth? It's not going to be you're not going to own a business probably. You're going to work for some entity. So how do you build your wealth if not through buying a home? And so she is laser focused on that. And like you said, Don, you've heard her say the same thing a few times. She's serious about this, and we wouldn't have a better person that when they say they're going to do something, she's about what she says she's going to do. She doesn't play. She is a serious individual when it comes to her people and what needs to be done. She's a fighter for righteousness and the truth. And we really wanted her to be Secretary of Agriculture, but Biden, had this longtime friend that he wanted to have there, so he put there. But we wanted her really to be Secretary of Agriculture because then she would deal with WIC and food stamps and all of that stuff, which is crucial. And she had been on
A lot
agriculture,
of black farmers too.
yeah, for her entire time in Congress. But we couldn't negotiate that one out. But we're glad she's at HUD because she still can have an impact on some of those areas.
Yeah, she's definitely doing the work, and and Karen, I'm laughing because she gonna get you, but had Naka on, and Naka was saying how they've been doing a lot of work around housing, and that the biggest areas, they have a they're one of the biggest conferences at the annual legislative conference is NACA, and now Mayor Baraka has been doing a lot of work with them as well. So, on home ownership. So it's big. They have some programs that are coming through, and they're thinking outside of the box. And I think Zaid, you just said, did you get ready to become a home? You're in the
I'm
process of
trying.
becoming.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to.
So,
I hope I get something soon
Pat-
because I really need it. That's a whole nother story. I don't want to get too deep in my own personal mess.
but but that's, and going back to what do the Dems do? I mean, those are something. Bringing home ownership to our community is something that has been a big issue for the Dems.
Absolutely, absolutely. We understand how important it is, and continue to try to make resources available for that. So, very proud of the work that Secretary Fudge is doing at HUD, and
Hmm.
that Democrats are doing in Congress. I mean, we've delivered the dough. I mean, the child tax credit, we want to make that permanent, and that took half of the children in poverty out of poverty, but it was only for a year. So we need to try to get that made permanent, and it would change this country dramatically.
And
Dramatic.
Congressman, how real is this conversation on Social Security? Is it something that they're look like it's going to be big conversation for you guys, like extending the age again with Social Security, or
They want to, they want to get rid of it, the Republicans. But if you saw how tactful the president was, he got
Mhm.
all of them to stand up and clap that Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare were going to be
Yes,
around, and
yes.
he embarrassed them so bad they had to stand up and clap, and they knew that was killing them.
Mhm.
But it was one of the more shrewder moments that he had during the State of the Union. He got them a few times. The White House was really giddy after the State of the Union because of the points the president made and how he really jammed the Republicans up. That night we were laughing, and so they were very happy at the outcome. Even when the Republicans tried to jam him up, he sidestepped it and pivoted and made really great points. That night. So we're going to continue to try to do what we need to do. They're going to be obstructionists, and it's going to be very difficult for us to get anything done. You know, over these next 2 years. But hopefully, the president can use his executive pen to get some of these things done, and we have the Senate, but getting stuff through the House is now the problem. We can never get the whole pie. They have the Senate, and then we have the House. Then they have the House. We have the Senate. So we can never get the whole thing, but we're going to do our darndest to try to basically embarrass them into doing what they need to do. So
The struggle matters.
Yeah.
Struggle has something to say. Those of us who struggle have something to say about some of that too. Hell yeah, up on all sides.
absolutely, absolutely.
So, Congressman, let
Go
me
ahead.
ask you a question. So do you think? Well, I guess I'll ask it this way: is there any conversation being had in the Congressional Black Caucus? Because, as you know, there's this question of whether Joe Biden is too old to run for reelection.
I was kind of gonna go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, is there any conversation about that in the Congressional Black Caucus?
Um, Quietly, I had no one has really approached me about it. We haven't discussed it as a topic, but there are murmurs. There's some folks are saying that. I tell you what, if he decides to run, I'm with him. I will say that now. If he decides to run, I'm with him.
Mhm.
Because what he's done in 2 years, people haven't gotten done in 50.
Listen, when he surprised everybody and made the trip to Ukraine, and he's doing, listen, he's not talking about it. He is actually doing the work. And they always try to just come back and play on his age. Today they released a report that the lesion that they found on his chest is cancerous. You know, um, I watched Joe and Jill ride a bike, and I don't think they could ride a bike, ride circles around me the way they was riding that bike in Delaware that day. So, so they want to keep making us think that that he's unhealthy, but unfortunately, we've seen some very healthy young people be attacked with some health issues. So I think we need to take the focus off of that and be focused on the work that he's doing. And one is
Yeah,
like him showing up in Ukraine and the speech he gave right behind that. And like you said, State of the Union, and he's been hitting the home runs. He's doing the work. He doesn't
yeah,
have to sit out there and look cute. Everybody wanting cute things, but no, he's
right.
doing the work.
That's probably a 7 hour flight to Poland, and then a 10-hour train ride from Poland to Ukraine, where he was. Can you imagine? 10 hours both ways, 20 hours on the train, and then on the plane back and forth to the States in like 3 or 4 days. And nobody says that, oh, the president won't be out today. He's out the next day. So God willing, I hope that his health remains steady, and we can be the benefit of his leadership, for as long as he deems fit.
And Reverend Dr. Pritchett, that's what we need to be doing, praying for him and stop talking. And say that's what Grandma
Oh yeah,
did. Thank God
yeah,
I had a praying grandmother. And
indeed.
that's what we had. His next speech would be, "I'm glad I got some praying constituents, because that's how I get up. Because what he's doing, it
Absolutely,
will be
absolutely.
challenging for anybody.
Sure.
That
And
I
you
that
also,
I
also
couldn't do it.
this is a period of time, I think, when we can say that people over the age of 70 also are setting new standards for what it means to be older in America, for the most part.
Absolutely. Look at Nancy Pelosi's 82.
Yes.
Maxine Waters
Exactly.
is 82.
Yep. And
Stevie Wonder is
also,
80.
this is Mr.
Clyburn, Jim Clyburn is 80.
Oh, who's mine from Chicago? Oh my goodness.
yes.
Danny Davis.
Danny Davis said one of the what's he said? A young man came to him and said, Congressman, it's time for you to sit down. He said, what's the saying? Doesn't concede. You want my seat? Come for it. If you win,
Right.
he
Yeah,
said, but
yeah.
I'm not gonna
Oh
sit
yeah,
here and just hit.
power
Yeah,
concedes nothing. Yeah.
that's
Without a
right.
demand, it never has and never will. It's Frederick Douglass.
Yes,
Yeah,
indeed.
Congressman.
I've been reminding students now for decades that at a certain point in time, you're going to have that generation of the '60s, those students who were the activists then, who will become the senior citizens. The further we get into the 21st century, which is where we are now.
Yeah.
And I said, so all the policies, the government policies that would pertain to Social Security and everything else better be in place right, or else, and pardon the pun, I might say that the Black Panthers of the past become the Gray Panthers of the present, and they'll be marching all around the White House in their wheelchairs and so forth.
Absolutely.
But I
Absolutely.
think that's I gotta keep my cane on the ready in case my legs.
Yeah, man.
But here's the issue though, Congressman. So you hear some people in the community are saying that, particularly on the Pan African front, what you hear is you hear folks saying now they can't see themselves voting for an 80-year-old white man, right? No matter how good he's doing, right? If strategically, um, Kamala is not positioned to win, but the white folks strategically don't want her to be the president. One, because she's female. Two, because she's black. So if there's some concerns about his health, then what those folks might say is that, well, you know, we wouldn't mind him winning re-election, but the question is of his health, right? At 80 years old, does he really have the stamina, right? Um, because he looks like he's missing cues with his memory. He's reading slower. Is he study? And like Zaid just said, they found some lesions on his chest, and so forth. And strategically, remember, it becomes, from those Donald Trump folk, right? It becomes a matter of them, can they really see a black woman being the president of the United States strategically?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of discussion about that as well. I mean, nine times out of 10, it's going to be a white man. So I mean, is it the color of the age that's the problem? Kamala's going to have a big challenge in front of her. First of all, she has to see if he's going to run. She can't run against him. And then there's some question about whether they'll take her again. There's some of that there.
That too, but remember, one thing is for sure, they can't. Well, you already know this, Congressman. They can't win without the black woman's vote, right? And if she has that level of support, right? I mean, there's no way that that they could deny her. The question is would be what would they have to give her, if Biden decides not to run, right? If strategically everybody's in the room and says, well, we know you want to run, we know you've got good stuff you could run on, but here's the problem we're going to have, right? And we know that the Republican Party is going to go real hard on this. They're going to try to rile up their base based around the fact that because Hannity's already talking about it, right? That he has Alzheimer's, he has early dementia setting in. You can see it. So they planting seeds, but the question is if they're having those conversations. The question is what do they give? What do they give Kamala, and then in turn, what do they give black women, right? Who would be the number one supporters of the Democratic Party, who did it last time around?
Well, look, Kamala's going to run. So, I don't think there's anything they could give her. I don't think there's anything they can give her. She, she's a vice presidential vice president. And so she's number 2 in line. So there's a natural inclination for the number 2 to run for number 1. So, I don't think there's anything they could give her not to run unless she just feels that she can't win, or she decides not to run. I don't think that is the vice president's inclination based on the woman I know.
Right. Not against an incumbent.
Right. But it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult for her because, in some areas some places they question her, but I think that if it's open, she runs. So
And I think Joe's got to make that decision. You know, he's got to, because you need 2 solid years to be out there doing the work.
Mhm.
So he's got it. He's and I forget when he said he was going to make the announcement. He said he was going to take some time to go sit down with his family, and he was going to come back and make the announcement after the new year. So I don't remember, exactly when. Do you recall that?
I
But
think it's in the next month or so.
yeah. But I don't really think it's a family thing. I think it's a democratic family thing. I think we need to get our things together and stop worrying. So you know, the Republicans, we have to be in order. Are we going to be solidify ourselves behind him and Kamala? Um, and if there's a plan, if there's a plan, and God forbid he doesn't and he's not able, are we strong enough to let her ascend to that position and then do what that does? And get our Democratic party strong enough at our messaging. Right now, who's the head of the Democratic Party? Who's in that position, Congressman? Is
Isn't
it
it Jamie in
Hakeem.
South Carolina?
no, not the not
Oh, you mean the chair? The chair of the
the
party?
chair. Yeah, exactly.
Jamie Harrison,
It's
Right, out of South
Jamie
Carolina.
Harris. Yeah, right. And so
a black
Jamie,
man.
Yeah.
so we have to, just do more. Our messaging. Our problem has always been our messaging. We're doing the right things, we're doing the work, but we're really concerned. And I think one thing we need to work on is our messaging.
And
Right.
with that, Donna, you had your share of electoral experiences. How do you think the messaging should go?
The Democrats have to they have to tell their story because they're doing the work, and I don't think their story is being told enough about the work that they're doing. And it has to, you have to have somebody. I think the one time where we were all clear and concise was probably last time when Stacy was down in Georgia doing the work, and the messaging was on point. She was out there organizing, and that was the one time that you seen that we were all going, albeit it was Georgia, but what did she do? She got those 2 seats. She brought record numbers to the polls, and to the point, what Stacey Abrams did almost reminded me what Barack did. To the point that they're studying so much of what she did that they wrote laws so it can't be done again. You can't stand online and give people water. You can't make people comfortable. People won't mind coming to standing out 2 and 3 hours, but now they got to stand 2 and 3 hours and be uncomfortable. That's silly. And Dr. Pritchett, you're our historian right here. I mean, there are things that people study about us, and then they use it to undo. We know what's going on in Jackson, Mississippi.
Yeah.
They're getting ready to let minorities run the majority down there. We have to, number one, get to the polls, like Jesse said years ago. Whether you're voting for a president or whether you're voting for the dog catcher, you need to vote all the time, especially under the circumstances of which we can vote. And then, um, going back to your question, is our messaging is, and I'm not sure because I'm sure Stacy could name any position she won. So I don't know why she's, some, you know, Stacy needs to be out there helpful because she's a great organizing and help us with that messaging and things like that. Because the work is definitely being done, but most people don't know what that work is being done
Good
and how
point.
and who's doing it.
As a matter of fact, let
And
me
that
just.
the Democrats are doing. I'm sorry, Dr. Pritchard.
Oh, no, 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 no. I was just going to punctuate that by pointing out something. Right, right now, historians who specialize in periods of, let's say, past history are probably putting the books together now on the past century, which would be from 1900 to 1999, the 20th century. And I believe that when it comes to how Black folks have influenced that history, there has to be a chapter there that might look something like this. What was the moral force of the 20th century, and it has to have been the civil rights movement, the struggle of Black people for dignity and justice and their own pride and recognition that has actually not only elevated themselves, but in this reciprocal movements has elevated, our awareness and consciousness of many other groups, the disabled population, women's groups, and so forth. So I point that out in that that is a true lesson from history, that our moral perspective, our moral analysis.
I don't know what's happened to Ann Coulter, but you should hear her lately. She's talking about all these groups that have co-opted the Black movement in civil rights. It says civil rights was Black rights. It was Black people that were moving forward, and all of these other groups co-opted our movements. Which I'm like, Ann Coulter? She has really, she's had an epiphany. She's had an epiphany. I was like shocked. But she's saying that really the only folks that really have a right to this are Black people. I don't know why I guess she's, just trying to cut down the number of people but I mean, I had to blink wipe my eyes.
Is she trying to set us up? I think she might be setting us up.
Well, no, it's funny. I would love to hear Ann and Bill Maher, talk, because if you ever heard Ann Coulter and Bill Maher talk, she would always probably concede that Bill was right, but but for to what Congressman Payne was saying, and where'd you hear her speaking? Because I haven't heard her speaking in a long time.
I know. I saw it on some tape the other day of her. I was just amazed. But don't bring up Bill Maher. I used to like Bill Maher, but I think he's speaking too much. I think he's one of these guys that's patting us on the head, saying, "Look, I'll speak for you." Him and woke. He needs to shut up about woke. He doesn't know what woke means. And I'm about to go ballistic on DeSantis, because I'm saying in the fashion that he's using woke, that is the new nigger. The way he's using woke, if you just take out a sentence and where he says woke, put nigger, see if it doesn't fit.
Right.
That's direct attack.
He said this is where Florida is where woke is coming to die.
That's right.
Yes,
niggas are coming to die.
That's right.
So I'm about to go on the floor of the House and bring that up. And I've been talking to some of my elders in the Black Caucus to see if I'm off base. And a couple of them told me, no, you might have something there, Payne.
No, yeah,
I'm about to do that. I'm going on the floor of the House and tell these Republicans that they have replaced the N-word with woke.
No, DeSantis wanted his own army, and did he get it? DeSantis wanted no Black history, and to the point that if you were teaching it, it could have been punitive. DeSantis is DeSantis. What he's doing down in Florida is woo.
He's Trump with a brain.
Yes.
Yeah, but he's
more
trying
like Hitler. More like Hitler.
Out Trump, right? And he's much more polished than Trump. He's much more racist than Trump.
And he's
right.
And he's a younger man. He's not an old guy like Bill.
That's right. That's right. And
Haley has said we're all old.
But Congress, here's the thing, right? So in the Black community, and here's what I heard Ben Crump say, and I heard Reverend Sharpton say this too, that the Biden administration is going to have to make a move in regards to the John Lewis bill, in regards to the George Floyd bill, and they're going to have to do something around student government, because What they were saying was, and Reverend Sharpton
yeah.
said that's going to be a major part of his convention next month.
Mhm.
He said that they won't get elected. He said because they're actually people who are organizing these things that they're going to put in front of black folk to dismotivate them. No matter what this man has done, they're going to say that he is not, everything he's promised black people has not come to pass, particularly around the policing act, particularly around voting rights, particularly around student loans, and those young people who voted for him because he promised them that he was going to deliver. And comedians are now making jokes about it, right? I saw some comedians say, "Wow, how's that student loan forgiveness going for you by Joe Biden?"
But
Mhm.
then that's to Zaid's question, what could the messaging be? And I think that's what the messaging can be. So you get like Stacy and they go to these cities and they start organizing from the ground up because Biden has done his part, but now it has to be able to get through both of the houses and make sure
Right,
that he can get something on his desk to sign. And
right,
that comes from organizing, and that comes from blowing up all of these phones and doing campaigns, phone call campaigns, knocking on door campaigns to get people to understand. Because most of these people who think they align with the Republican Party don't. They align with the Democratic Party in
well,
terms of the things that they
well, they're,
need.
you
Good.
know what, they're and Ed, to your point, that people have to understand that the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act is legislation. Biden doesn't have anything to do with that. He'll sign it if we get it through. We got to get it through. So that's the problem. We got to win the House,
And
pass
and
it.
he did the same thing with the student loan, and now it's at the Supreme Court. They have a pile of applications that he was ready to approve up to the what was it 20 the number he can, and it got stopped at the Supreme
20,000.
Court 20,000. And I'm telling you, people that I've seen, it has been doctors, lawyers saying I put my application in, but guess what? It stopped at the Supreme Court. So you just said um, student loans. You said the John R. Lewis, and what was the third one?
Student loans, George Floyd.
And the George Floyd, the Police Act. So these are all matters that are between
Legislative.
legislative that they have to get to his desk so he can sign. He said, get it to my desk and I'll sign it." So we have to be out here organizing community by community. And what's going on in Mississippi, that's something that none of us should be. That's another messaging because if
That's very dangerous.
that's going on down there, it'll like wildfire, it'll spread throughout the rest of the state.
I want to
So
Yeah.
shout out though, just before a hot second. I just want to shout out our little sister Rukaya Lumumba is running for state of the state house
Right.
in Mississippi, and that's an important move. We're proud of that, and I'm looking forward to trying to figure out how to
beautiful.
get down there and help her. Go ahead, y'all.
And Congressman, we are almost at the end, and we won't see you for another month. And we're coming up on the anniversary where we know March 6th will be a day where you'll be sitting somewhere contemplating where your best friend is not here with you to go to that game.
Yeah.
It's 11 years now.
Yes.
11, yes. So as those days come up, and we think of those days and lessons that you were taught, what are some of the things that you'll be, March 6th, that you'll
Probably,
be reflecting on and doing?
probably in bed all day in fetal position crying, but no, I just been oh my god, all the four of you are looking at one blessed individual.
Hmm.
God blessed me with that man in so many ways that I can't even begin to tell you all the ways that I was blessed by him. I mean, even in death, he's still giving to me because, I became a congressman. I've been able to do a lot of things for a lot of people. And it's just the example that he was, as a public servant, and that, most of us in my family, wanted to be like him. We all strive to be like him. And, to my uncle, who was the architect who sacrificed his own desires to make sure that his brother was successful and all of us successful, the patriarch of our family. If it wasn't for Bill Payne, none of us would have been successful in this. And, maybe I need to bring him on next month.
We were supposed to.
It'd be great to have.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, remind me, Ed. Remind me that I'm, and I'll bring him on next month. He's going to be 91 in July.
I know.
And he marched with us on the last march too.
Yeah, I took him to the State of the Union with me because, he mentioned that he had never been, and I was shocked that he had never been all those years with my father. And, I really could have got him, with Obama, and he said it then. And so, I wasn't going to bring him during Trump. So this was the first opportunity we had. I brought him to the State of the Union for the speech, which he really appreciated. And we were waiting in the hallway, and the president came through, and he stopped and spoke to me and spoke to my uncle. I said, "You remember my Uncle William?" He says, "Of course I do." He got a little indignant. Yeah, of course I do.
Yeah.
I was like, "Okay, sorry, Mr. President," but it's just been incredible. Just think, I've already done half the time my father was in Congress. It's amazing. It's amazing to me. It seemed like that was forever. That 23 years. I've done 11.
Wow, wow. Didn't realize that. How about that?
It's amazing. And I rededicated myself to making sure that I'm able to do the things for the my constituents that means something. And my disability in all of this is I'm not the articulate orator that is the tradition in Newark politics. I know stretch of the imagination, in Raz or Corey or Sharp James or Donald Tucker or Ron Rice or any of them. I don't have that skill, but I do the work. I know I do the work.
But I think you do have the skill that your dad had, is that as far as he got, I never forget being at his wake, and a testimony of how many people say, even though he was in DC, he would call back, "Did y'all do this? Home was home." He was serious about taking care of his district and home. And you do that too.
Absolutely.
You call back. We had a young lady tell us that she had an opportunity to intern, and she got so giddy. Just talking about, working, had the opportunity to work with you. So I think that was that's a serious, and you do that all day, every day. Do the
Yeah.
things that mean the most. Like you said, you normally don't. Congressional members normally don't get involved in local races, but you were out there walking in West Orange, and that's something your dad would have done. So I remember when Joe D ran, your father walked that community and walked Joe D into our office. He had him at people's houses and everything. So
Absolutely.
that's exactly what you do. So that is a trait that you have taken on. So
Yeah, but that ain't necessarily your flow, Congressman, right? You don't really flow like that. And I've been riding with you, day one you've been riding here.
Yeah.
So I don't really, you don't flow like that, right? And Zaida tell you this is an old boxing adage. The punch that knocks your ass out is the one you don't see.
That's right.
You busy knocking folks out. They don't even know they've been knocked out or they getting knocked out, right? Other folks are telling you what's happening.
A lot of people do say that people that are close to me, it says the one thing that people do is underestimate you, and then you turn around Because there's no reason. Somebody said there's no reason you should have become president of city council. There's no reason you should have been the highest vote getter. But they take you for granted, and you keep shocking them. So,
right. And you think about it, because I remind you of this all the time. When me and you started the Payne report, you only remember it was you who gave me the name. I see, if I wasn't an honest guy, I'll take the name and say, let me go on and trademark this name. You know what I mean?
Hey, but you should trademark it for him.
Trademark it on Payne, right?
Yeah.
You're like, yo, it was my idea, but now he's my brother. I'm telling you, when we came up with that, that's a dope idea. Yeah. The Payne report, live from Congress. Come on, man. And so at the end of the day, we've had some classic shows. You got to think about
some really good. We've had some really good times. We have, and you can tell how reluctant I was to do it. When I first came on, and. Zay and I go back to the city council, those days where he wasn't sure about me, but over the years, I think I gained his confidence. Say what?
I gave everybody hell. It's all good.
How about the ones when I like the ones when you and John debate. You get into John.
Yeah. Congressman, get at John.
I got to keep that brother honest, Where has he been lately?
Hey, Congressman, hold on a second. Hey, Professor Pritchett. Congressman like to get at John Austin. He think he's the smartest guy in the room.
Okay.
And Pritchett and the Congressman will challenge him every now and then, and he gets stumbled. He's like,
yes.
Hey, he's been gone since Biden won. When I told him Biden.
I got you.
When you told them that them young people better sit down and realize that people are fighting for them to have the privileges that they had today, that day was.
Oh yeah. Oh, and Dr. Pritchett, your point is valid about what the African American has done for this nation, because they refer to us in Congress, the Congressional Black Caucus, as the conscience of the Congress.
All right.
And, that's a name that we wear proudly. Mm-hmm. We're the ones that always think of the people and their needs, are foremost in our deliberation of legislation. So we've been branded the conscience of the Congress, and we wear it proudly. So I just wanted to refer back to that. But my father was he was something else. I tell you, I tell people I'm glad my mother had such good taste in men. So because you don't get to choose your parents. That's for sure.
True.
All right.
And so I just God bless me. I guess God knew that I was gonna need help, so He said, "No, I better put this boy with these people, so he can have a halfway chance." So,
and even how I know as Al, but how you even took, his sickness and turned it into a learning lesson, and how relevant that lesson has been in the last couple of years, because and maybe even needing to go back and tweak that legislation, and because it's been affecting a lot of young people, and so we have to pay attention to our health.
Absolutely.
And the biggest show the Congressman has had on. Remember that brother you brought on from Mississippi?
Oh yeah,
Doctor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're about to.
That was a hell of a
Since
show.
I'm not chairman anymore of the railroads.
Did he freeze?
Yeah, he froze. He's coming. Give him a second.
Yeah.
He may have to go back.
We really got to pay attention to what's happening.
Yeah. Let him come. He'll come back in.
Dedicated to.
Now start all over. You stopped. You froze. So start right about the chairman of the The railroads. That's
Yeah,
what he
I'm
said.
no longer chairman of the railroads pipelines because the Republicans have control. So I'm diligently working on my anti-amputation legislation again. And that you brought up the doctor, we had a Zoom meeting last month where we're going to get back into it deep. So I'll definitely have to have him back on here. And he's done some miraculous things in the last 2 or 3 years, getting all
Phenomenal.
kinds of national
Okay.
prominence, and so we're about to go in, and I'm going to stem the tide of unnecessary amputations in
Right.
this country before I retire.
Yes.
Professor Pritchett, we out of time, but I
Yeah.
gotta tell you, man, the Congressman Payne brought a brother on. I mean, phenomenal brother,
Beautiful young brother.
saving lives
Yeah.
left and right. No, and nobody knew about this brother. And
Sure.
thank God for Congressman Payne. And I share things about my own personal life, and wish I knew a brother like that
Oh,
Yes,
my
sir.
goodness.
to be able to help my father. But
Goodness,
but
yeah.
we didn't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But listen, we're gonna go around one time, and then we'll give the congressman the last word. So let's start with you, Professor Pritchett. Any final words?
Actually, what I have found is that what I think is original has already been said before me. So let me quote one of those great orators of the past, Frederick Douglass, who said, where justice is denied, where poverty is enforced, where ignorance prevails, and where any one class is made to feel that society is organized, an organized conspiracy to oppress, rob, and degrade them, neither persons nor property will be safe. And if there is no struggle,
Yeah,
there is no
No
progress.
progress.
that's
Yes,
right.
sir.
That's right.
Thank you.
Donna?
This is a Congressman Payne show, so I'm gonna repeat something by a dear friend of his, and that's Mike Barbie. And Mike said, coming out of COVID, we need to be intentional. And when we're intentional, people really feel it. So please just remember, be intentional.
All right.
Zaid?
2 names. Remember the name that G. Seabrooks. This is the young man who was killed in the mental health crisis in Patterson, a very preventable death. He was a part of the Patterson Healing Collective. He was a peacemaker, and the police would not let his medical expert leadership help him, and they wound up killing him. So that's a sad note. On another note, I want to just shout out an elder who has just become an ancestor, Clifford C. Johnson, 97 years young. This is my father's last living brother. We saw him off today. He's an Asbury legend, right? And I just wanted to shout out my family on my father's side for the departure of our patriarch, the late Clifford C. Johnson.
God bless him.
Yes, sir.
God bless him.
Thank
So
you,
for
folks.
me, I'd like to thank all of the guests, of course, who were on tonight. We appreciate everybody who thought not at robbery to come on. And Congressman, I just got a text from some of our folks at Rutgers University. They said, Congressman, tell Congressman Payne, I said, please keep up the good work, and we thank him for all that he does, and for always showing up on the All Politics and Local show.
Beautiful.
So
Absolutely. Thank you.
people are aware of what's going on. So, but for me, as I say, I thank everybody for coming through tonight. As Zaid said, this is the drum for our community.
That's right.
And Professor Pritchett, we appreciate you taking the time to
Thanks
hang
for
out.
having us. Yeah.
You not only are our elder, but you are also our brother, our professor, our doctor, and you embody, Black power, man. You don't walk around, with a jacket on. You don't walk around cussing people out, but you have sowed into all of our lives, and we are the people we are because you are who you are,
That's right.
right?
Multu,
And we
baby.
tell
Multu.
you a million times that we love you, man. So I'm telling you publicly how much I love you. And I know that I share that with all the brothers, clearly who you've sown into, who are my friends, man. So we appreciate you and thank you. And you know that anytime you want to come hang out here, just like Larry Ham, y'all just come on here and just hang out with us.
That's
Man.
right.
We love that, you know, right? And so we're gonna give the Congressman the last word,
Thank
because this is the Payne report. And you know, what can I say about Congressman Payne other than the fact he's my brother, and I consider him a friend. And every now and then he get at me too. he just don't do it publicly, which I appreciate. So, Congressman, it's yours, man.
No, well, I just want to thank all of you for this opportunity and this platform for me to be able to have some of the folks that don't get to see me or know me hear from me. And, you know, since you invoked, you have me thinking about my father now. I guess I'll end with a poem he taught me when I went to school in Hillside, part of my education, and there was a lot of racial strife. And he taught me a poem a long time ago that I keep in the back of my head. And my sister Wanda, God rest her soul, would get so tired of me hearing it because I invoke it wherever I go. And it's whether you have blonde, fleecy locks or black complexion, it does not forfeit nature's claim. Skin may differ, but affection dwells in black and white the same. And rise so tall as to reach the poles or span the oceans with my hands, I must be measured by my soul. The mind is the standard of a man.
Yeah.
And that kept me going when people tried to make me believe that I was less than someone else. And so that's always been very dear to me. And he was the one that gave it to me. So
Who wrote the poem?
I don't even know.
Dr.
I don't
Keith.
even know. But you know, he gave it to me a long time when I was a young man, teenager, and I've been reciting it ever since.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
thank you.
Well, we thank y'all, and folks, we thank y'all for
Yeah, I'm
tuning
not
in.
And Congressman, give the triplets and the bride a beautiful hug from all of us.
Will do. Will do. Thank you.
You were saying something, Professor Pritchett? I think he froze.
You froze.
All
too.
right, y'all.
Oh,
So,
oh no, I was at Dr. Payne.
okay. Well, listen, y'all. We thank everybody for tuning in to All Politics Are Local, America's number one political hip hop radio talk. We'll see y'all next week, same time, same bat channel, right
All
here.
right.
You don't stop. You don't stop.
See y'all later.
Peace out.